Alright, boom. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Flip That Show. It's your host with the most, King Truth, host of Brad Benny Ball. Don't want the word, don't want the flow.
I got up and ran for the door. The man with the knife tried to catch me, but he tripped over the table. I felt the air cutting my face. I ran down the stairs.
And we coming at you live, man, 329. It's gonna be Durk coming home soon due to a lying snitch. So, and the lawyers calling the people out, man.
I was about to keep running. But
It's gonna be Trap Little Ross or Trap More Loss.
I tried to keep running, but I got too dizzy to take another step. I fell to the ground. My attacker's still there.
We're gonna get right into these clips, man. Appreciate you liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the notification bell so I know y'all there so I can 13 minutes in the air.
Me against the wall again. I fell to the ground more dizzy. He began attacking me to the floor. The man grabbed my shirt as if to pull me up.
Follow me on Kick, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Discord, hype the video up. Let's get to 4,000 subs. Follow me on IG. Let me know in the IG and the Discord what content you guys want to see, man.
My heart beating at an impossible pace. I don't know how long I waited, but when I finally stopped, I realized that Josette's
Join the community, man. Yeah.
But I had no other choice.
What else? So yeah, man, this is gonna be Trap Little Ross, and then we're gonna go slide over there to Seti Nash for a little bit. We're gonna be on to the next one. Let's go.
Stuttering as I tried to explain what had happened. They picked me up in a patrol car and we returned to the building. But when we arrived, there was no.
We've got some very fresh new Lil Durk paperwork, and some people are saying that it's finally looking good for the boy Lil Durk. Now, I've said quite a few times on this channel that I personally think, in my personal, honest, own, personal, just me, not trying to get sued opinion, is that Lil Durk is perhaps cooked. He is perhaps overly cooked. He's perhaps grilled, charbroiled, perhaps. But realistically, a lot of people think that I'm capping. A lot of people think I've got the wrong opinion. That's just my personal opinion. I don't want people to get the wrong idea and think that I'm telling you for a fact, 100,000%. If it's not true, if I'm lying, I'm dying. That's just my opinion. A lot of people think that Lil Durk is going to beat this, and one of those people is my guy, Seti Nash. Shout out to Seti Nash. He just posted this new paperwork on his story on Instagram and on his as a post on Instagram, and he believes that he's been saying since the very beginning that Durk is going to go free. Now, I want to be very fair. I want to present you his opinion on this first, and then I'm going to go through the paperwork and explain why I personally... I'm not entirely convinced that he is good, but I do feel like this new piece of paperwork is make or break, and we might see things start to go in a positive direction for Durk if, and that's a big, fat, enormous 400-pound if, the government doesn't clap back in a powerful way. But if the government does clap back in a way that I think they might clap back, it will be over for Lil Durk, and he will be fully cooked like a rotisserie chicken. I'm not going to lie, okay? So there's a lot of nuance to this, and it all comes down to quite literally the last couple of lines of this paperwork. So I'm going to go through the entire thing. I've just read the entire 11-page document. I've made notes on everything. I'm going to break it all down for you. But before we get to that, let's look at what Seti had to say about the situation.
The only person that ain't signed the OTF that been telling y'all from day one Durk finna be found innocent. Take a look. PW1 first claimed that there was no bounty, that he did not commit the murder for money. He did it under duress to magically change the story. They realized what he was saying was cap probably when the SSI removed the allegation that Didi actually paid the bounty. So here you say right here, if that doubt eliminating discovery existed, the government would certainly have cited to it in its oppression, yet it does not. Indeed, nowhere does the discovery set forth anything resembling a fixed or coherent theory of the time, place, and circumstances of the bounty, allegations, or at the direction of the allegations. On the contrary, the discovery reveals government witnesses who are consistently changing their stories. PW1, for example, has asserted that there was no bounty at all, that he did not agree to murder TB for monetary gain, and that he did so under duress. But as one might expect in a murder for hire prosecution, Predicated on the existence of a bounty, he rises to meet the occasion. In one government proffer session, PW1 recounts how Mr. Wilson allegedly stayed behind in Los Angeles after the other participants flew out in order to collect the bounty money for distribution. PW1's story is, however, flatly contradicted by the objective evidence. The government's realization that PW1 lied here is likely why, between the first superseding indictment and the second superseding indictment, it deleted language alleging that Mr. Wilson paid the bounty after SR's homicide. See docket number 27, page 6 at 9, when the government's witnesses are constantly changing their stories about crucial facts as the discovery catalogs here. Mr. Banks' defense must take aim at a moving target that is fundamentally unfair. Yeah, I'm going to drop the full entire thing on my channel, but we're going to do that tomorrow. Let the bloggers have it. I'm always breaking news. Shout out to Durk all day. Shout out to Lil Bro. Do your thing. Crazy shit.
So Seti said, I'm going to let the bloggers have it. I appreciate the alley-oop once again from Seti Nash. I wonder why he's not jumping on this immediately. Does he feel like he needs somebody else to come in and maybe put a little bit more context to this? Or maybe he's just tired this evening. I don't know, okay? But I personally saw this. I thought it was very interesting. I pulled up the paperwork myself. I read through the entire thing. I made notes on absolutely everything. And I do think there's some very nuanced details that he missed. And I do think that if we get this all broken down page by page, I'm going to explain to you why this really is make or break. And I don't think this is necessarily the outright victory that it's being portrayed as. But I do think this is like an ultimatum being left, okay? They're basically saying, you ain't got nothing, show us what you got. And if they come back and show them exactly what they have, and it fills in all the gaps that Durk is calling out, he's cooked. It's over with, right? They've put together a puzzle, and there's a few pieces missing. They're saying, if you ain't got these pieces, you ain't going to finish this puzzle. And it's all or nothing. But if they come through and they say, what do you think of this piece? What do you think of this piece? And they slot it in these perfectly puzzled, Dirk-shaped sized holes, pause, it's going to be over with, all right? So let me break it down to you. I've got it here. I've broken down all of the pages and read through the whole thing. But basically, this is Durk Banks's reply in support of his motion to dismiss the entire indictment as a result of vagueness, or in the alternative for a bill of particulars. Now, basically, we're going to go full circle, and at the very end of this paperwork, it's basically going to make it very clear that they're asking the government, say, either dismiss the entire indictment or tell us what's missing. And if, this is what I say, this is a Hail Mary pass, because if they actually come back with what's missing, he's cooked, it's very unlikely that they're just going to dismiss it. And there's maybe a small chance that they come back with something flimsy, but I'm just honestly not feeling like it's necessarily the biggest win for Durk. But look, when you get into the details, I'm going to break this down, okay? So look, here basically, what we're going to see on this page is Durk's lawyers are basically arguing that the indictment is vague because it doesn't say what the bounty that was on Quando Rondo's head is. Again, there's a lot of talk, and I think there's going to be a lot of reaction from Durk meat riders that are basically going to be like, look, see, like, there ain't no bounty, there's nothing, they ain't got nothing on him. No, it's not they ain't got nothing on him. They explained very clearly, we don't want to show you some of these things because it's going to compromise our witnesses. It's going to put people's families, it's going to put people's lives in danger. Okay. But Durk's given them an ultimatum and they probably are going to have to come back. Okay. But what's interesting here is it basically says, okay, that Durk basically, they wanted to clarify very specific things, two specific things, the alleged bounty and the pervasive yet vague at the direction of accusations. They're saying the two main things that you need to prove that this was a murder for hire was the alleged bounty, what was the hiring, what was the pay, you know, if this was a LinkedIn job description, what's the pay and benefits looking like, okay? And then at the direction of accusations. If you're going to say that you done the murder for hire and you hired me for a specific bounty, you got to tell me what the instructions were. Again, if you want to go back to the LinkedIn example, it's like, what was the job description? What was the instructions given? But basically, Durk's lawyers are saying, all right, they failed to do so. The opposition recites at great length details in the indictment that are irrelevant to the instant motion. It then states conclusory in a conclusory fashion. My bad, man. My bad. It states in a conclusory fashion that the discovery fills in any missing pieces on essential elements without explaining how or laying a record for the court to decide whether that's true. They've already gone back and forth about these points, but what basically the government said is like, it's very obvious. We've got all of these things from this witness. We've got other things. We don't need his iCloud. We've got other people's messages. We've got messages that Durk has probably sent to other people and been received. Everything, you've got everything you need. We don't need to prove anything else. They're basically clapping back and saying, you guys saying that you already gave us everything that we got in discovery is enough, is cap. Whether or not that's going to be accepted by the judge, whether or not the prosecution are going to clap back with more information, I don't know at this stage. But okay, it's kind of a little bit spicy. Okay, and basically like this idea that if you don't have these things, you're not going to be able to move forward. Like the judge might actually clap back and say, nah, you guys have actually been given enough information. We do need to protect the information of the witnesses. And I'm going to allow it to continue to be vague. Now, what we end up seeing later on in line 10 is it basically, Durk's lawyers basically suggest that they're not allowing Durk to see the evidence that he's up against before trial, and that's not fair. It says the court should see through this smokescreen and decline to blindly take the government's word that the discovery puts Mr. Banks on constitutionally sufficient notice. Without the court's intervention, this vague indictment becomes a blank check that the government has written to itself, allowing Mr. Banks's prosecution on facts that were not presented to the grand jury that would take him by surprise at trial and are continually shifting as government cooperators change their stories. And they're basically going to go on to make some very harsh points to suggest that the cooperating witness keeps changing their story, but I'm going to explain why that is kind of a little bit of a stretch, and I think people are jumping the gun a little bit in my personal opine. Okay, so it goes on to explain over here in sort of line 20. Okay, it basically says that the indictment doesn't state where, when, or why the bounty was placed, and this is essential to a murder for hire charge. It says at the outset, okay, it's important to clarify what Mr. Banks is and is not arguing in this motion. In his motion, Mr. Banks takes issue with only two deficiencies in the indictment. The first is that the indictment fails to allege the essential facts with a reasonable particularity of time, place, and circumstances related to the alleged bounty that's an element of the murder for hire charge. It goes on to say in a footnote, it alleges only that at some point in the nearly 2-year time frame between November 6th, 2020 and August 22, 2022, the death of King Von and the murder of Savia Robinson, Mr. Banks made clear in coded language to defendant Wilson and co-conspirators 2, 4, and 5 and others that he would pay a bounty or monetary reward and pay money and lucrative music opportunities to anyone that took part in the killing of Taekwon Bowman. What's really dumb about this and why people are thinking this is such a gotcha is basically Durk's lawyers are saying, look, you haven't said when, where, or why this bounty was offered. Now, I don't know what that bounty was. They're saying it was money and lucrative music opportunities. Whether or not the government are going to clap back and say, there you go, Wednesday, the 5th of November, 2021, Durk group text the whole of OTF and said, I'm only giving a verse to people that are shooting shots at Quando Rondo. You cooked, you're done. But if the government can't actually come back with anything at all, at the very least, they're needing to come back with a witness that's going to explain to them, like, yo, I basically was told, and there's more information from a witness that I believe was redacted previously that's actually available in this. But if a confidential witness says, yo, look, Durk basically told the guys that, like, it's 20 bags, 20 grand if you can shoot shots at Quando, 50 if you kill him, and also you get a verse. That's not the best. That's not as good as a text message from Durk saying, I've got verses for anyone that tries to kill Quando, but it's still something, and it's still better than what a lot of people are kind of deriding and saying, like, yeah, they got nothing on him. Now, they got something on him. We just don't know what it is yet. And if the government clap back and provide the who, what, where, the time, place, and circumstances of this, they're basically saying it's so vague. It alleges only that at some point in the nearly 2-year time frame between November 6th and August 22nd, they might come back with 100 instances of Durk offering up money and verses and career opportunities and ranking the gang for killing Quando Rondo. You know, they're saying, at some point they might offer a whole bunch. They might offer one, but if they can't offer any, I would agree that this isn't necessarily a strong enough case to try. But I don't think that's going to be the case now. As we go on to the next page, what we end up seeing quite interestingly is basically Durk doesn't actually argue about any of the other vagueness in the case. And I feel like, I'm not going to lie, a lot of people were saying when the other guys in the case were trying to like sever their ties with Durk and have their cases separated, people were saying, oh, they're throwing Durk under the bus. Well, I'm not going to lie, like a little bit of me personally feels like maybe in a way this is kind of throwing the other guys under the bus, right? Because I mean, I'm not gonna. I don't want to go as far as to say it's telling on them because it's really not. But what I feel like it is doing is it's basically saying, here, look on line 5, it says, Mr. Banks, all right. Oh, let me read the first line, actually. It says, the second part is it fails to allege the essential facts about the directions that Mr. Banks is alleged to have given in furtherance of counts 3 through 5. Directions that are his only alleged link to crimes carried out by others in his absence. It doesn't say, it says alleged links to, it doesn't even say alleged links to alleged crimes. It says that's his only alleged links to crimes carried out by others in his absence. Kind of throwing those guys under the, I'm not going to lie, kind of throwing those guys under the bus. Saying, yeah, them guys, crimes carried out, he wasn't there. Them crimes that really happened. And it says Mr. Banks argues vagueness on these 2 topics only. And then it basically goes on to say Mr. Banks doesn't argue that the indictment is fatally vague in any other way. It's basically saying, with respect to the motive for Taekwon Bowman's murder, the date, time, circumstances of the stalking, gun possession, and the murder of Savia Robinson, what facility in interstate commerce was used, or the overt acts necessary to support a conspiracy charge, his lawyer's basically saying, yo, them boys all cooked. But Durk, don't put it on Durk. You can't prove that Durk's tied in, but it's looking bad. Kind of throwing them guys under the bus, if I'm completely honest with you. Now, from here, it basically goes on to essentially claim, like they were basically, Durk's lawyers basically claim that the government wants to act like including those details kind of makes the murder for hire charge valid across the board. And they're kind of like arguing with this fact. So let me just break it down so you understand. It says, yet the government wants the court to find that the inclusion of details on these other matters renders the indictment valid across the board. So they're basically saying the government is trying to suggest that including these details that cook everybody else but Durk, they're trying to say that the indictment is valid across the board on Durk, but it's not. But still, you're still kind of throwing the other guys under the bus. And I get it. You got to throw guys under the bus sometimes. It's like, yeah, them guys is cooked, but murder, you got it. Murder for hire, whoa, you ain't got the evidence for that. That's what they're trying to do here. It says its opposition's introduction cites the indictment's robust allegations about the motive for the murder, details about how defendants stalked the murder victim's vehicle for hours leading up to the killing, including photos and details about each defendant's role in the murder plot. Again, you're throwing them under the bus saying they're cooked. It says no mention of the robustness of the bounty or at direction of allegations. So he's saying, look, you got them guys bang to rights. You got pictures of them. You got stalking chart. Yeah, great. But come on, man. Murder for hire on Durk. You ain't proven that, okay? And I would agree that that probably is currently the most flimsy part of the case, the hardest to prove, but they have brought these charges and I feel like they are going to have more stuff to bring. Now, what ends up being said next is Durk's lawyers basically say that the government can't give up the bounty info because it's not there. And I think that might be a little bit of a reach. There's no mention of the robustness of the bounty or at direction of allegations. Government opposition at 1 over the next 4 pages. It regurgitates all of the indictment's allegations, including those that do not matter here in great detail. 1 to 4, of course, the government can cite no robust allegation, let alone a bare bones time, place, or circumstance about a bounty being offered or accepted, or the directions Mr. Banks is alleged to have given his purported co-conspirators. The reason for that omission is simple: the indictment contains none. Now, what I think is interesting is they're basically trying to say that, like, you know, the state are wrong for saying that the indictment has all of that stuff. We don't need to give you anything else. You've already been given everything at discovery. But you notice it doesn't say that, you know, it didn't happen or it's not possible. It's saying that the indictment doesn't contain it. And they're basically saying you can't try and add it in later on. You've got to give it to us before trial so we can prepare for it. And we're going to see more stuff kind of to that effect as it goes on. There's some more stuff that's kind of interesting later on, right? It goes on to kind of talk about some of the background about the bounty and what's necessary to kind of reach the constitutional burden of actually proving this happened. But what's interesting is it basically goes on to say here, the superseding indictment includes the elements of the offenses, the date and place of the murder, the motive, participants, and actions they took leading up to, including the murder. But there's no missing factual allegation that precludes the finding of criminality. And later it argues that it's enough that the superseding indictment names with particularity the date and place of the murder, the participants, the motive, and 27 overt acts describing the actions leading up to the murder, as well as the murder itself. The indictment could contain 1,000 alleged overt acts, but if it's missing any essential facts giving rise to the charges, murder for hire, it fails nonetheless. Just like it names the date and place of the murder, it should name the date and place of the bounty offer. Now, this is probably one of the most effective arguments that I think Durk's lawyers have made to date. I feel like stuff like this is possibly why people are getting charged up, feeling like, yo, he's going to beat this, like he's got such a good chance. But again, it's like, that's all well and good saying you can have 1,000 overt acts, but if you don't have the date, time, and place of the bounty, then you can't put murder for hire charges on him. You've proved a bunch of random guys that have nothing to do with Durk did a murder, thrown him under the bus, but you haven't proved the bounty. That's all well and good until they hit you back with the information proving that the bounty happened, okay? It's all good just a week ago. If they clap back in the next couple of days and say, okay, this is the day he made the bounty and he said this guy was going to get on the song and there he is on Loyal Bros 2. Now, I'm just saying that's a little guess or it might have something to do with. But, like, you're going to be cooked. This sounds great now before the other side have had an opportunity to respond. But, like, if they clap back and they fill in all these gaps, he's going to be cooked, okay? So after this, it basically goes on to say that the bounty and the directions are the only link between Durk and the murder. I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to explain to you why this is wishful thinking, because there are actually other things, and people have tried to lie and say these aren't true when they are actually true. It says, the government's focus on non-pertinent details is a distraction. The presence of these details does not make up for the indictment's failure to provide a reasonable particularity of time, place, and circumstances where it matters, on the alleged bounty offer that's an essential element of the murder for hire charges, and on directions that are the only alleged link between Mr. Banks and the other charged with crimes. As to those two critical subject matters, the indictment is void of reasonable particularity of time, place, and circumstances. So let me break this down to you and explain to you why that actually is potentially nonsense. Because they're basically saying, look, all right, but they've already thrown these guys under the bus. They've said, yeah, it's looking like they did that murder. You got all this evidence, it's peaked, but none of that's on Durk. They're saying that the bounty offer, you need to give time, place, and when, where, and how was the offer of the bounty offered. And they're basically saying that's the essential element for murder for hire. And on the directions, where are the directions? When, where, how did Durk tell the people to do stuff? That's the only alleged link between Durk and the other charged in the crimes. Do you think he maybe gave some directions when he was flying on a private jet with one of the guys that was organizing the whole thing to LA randomly? And he just happened to be in LA while the hit was going down. A lot of people have got on my case because I said I thought it was a smoking gun that Durk was on a private jet to Los Angeles. I couldn't believe it. Right, when I saw the news of Quando screaming no on when I saw the news of Quando screaming no, I knew immediately that's Little Durk's work, because I know you've been getting told to slide for Von. I would have never ever in a million years guessed at the time. Oh yeah, I bet Lil Durk was just in LA hanging out when this hit went down. I couldn't believe it. All right, and I've already addressed this in a previous video. People on Reddit talking about, oh no, that's not true. Durk wasn't in LA. Yes, he was. He flew in on a private jet. It is what it is. Now, look, there is original paperwork. I haven't got time to go and pull up other paperwork on this, just because I want to get really just focused on the new paperwork. But, like, everybody knows, okay, Lil Durk was with OTF Vonnie on the private jet. On the same day the hitman traveled from Chicago to Cali, Durk made the journey, accompanied by Vonnie, who was a co-conspirator. He took decisive actions, purchasing ski masks for the intended shooters, using credit cards in Durk's names to pay for the hotel and accommodations for the rest. This sequence of events underscores the level of planning and cooperation. So when you lock cap and you say, oh, there's no bounty. Where are the directions? These are the only alleged link between Durk and the others charged. Well, yeah, the only alleged link, apart from the fact you guys are on a private jet going to LA together. Like, what did you chat about on the jet? What was going on the jet? Would Vonnie have been able to book a private jet on his own, on his salary of working as well? I guess what, like a personal assistant for OTF? Absolutely not. Cap. Okay, these guys in OTF, little bit of disrespect, but not really. But like these guys in OTF, nobody's getting private jet money other than Durk. Nobody's getting to California like that on a private jet other than Durk. I don't know if maybe guys in OTF do have a little bit of their own money, but if dudes are booking it on Durk's credit card, purchasing ski masks, what I mean. So everyone going, oh my God, Durk's going to beat this. I've been telling him, no disrespect, right? Except Nash, my guy. But it's like, when they're saying, oh, that's the only link between Durk and the others charged. No, it's not. The other link, you're on a jet together going to LA. What, just for a vacation and someone just got killed? It just so happened this went down. And what did you guys talk about? You're going to say Durk had no idea and then they linked up after the hit. And what, did they fly back on the jet as well? Did they chat about anything? Did they talk about, oh, the most popping hip hop news story right now is Quando Rondo screaming no on the news. Like, that's coincidence, and we just happen to be in LA. So yeah, I'm personally not buying it. I'm personally not buying this whole argument that, like, man, like, I'm Durk gonna beat it. Like, you know, there it is. There's the only alleged link. Cap. Sorry, I'm going to stop doing that because it just feels good to just like feel like I can just back up nonsense with facts. But anyway, as this kind of goes on, basically it'll say outright that Durk has the right to know the time, place, and circumstances of the transaction that led to the murder for hire charge. And I actually agree. I feel like the state should have put this forward. Their argument was that we're trying to protect witnesses' anonymity. We want to protect the jury. We want to protect the family of the people that are cooperating. And that is valid. I personally believe in transparency of information generally, and I feel like they should clap back and just put everything that they have on the table. Let Durk have a very like, this is me being throwing some bail to Durk. I think the state should give every bit of evidence that they have up. Let everybody know, let everybody publicly know, so that there's no more danger to the community for these OTF members that have been terrorizing the community. So we all know what they're on. We all know how they're communicating, how they're moving, how they're behaving, how they function, so that we can be on the lookout for any more of this dangerous, murderous behavior that's allegedly been taking place. But also so that let's let Durk have a full picture of exactly what they've got on him so that he can create his defense. I think that's only fair as well. Okay. And I do think that that's why this is kind of like a bit of a Hail Mary, because it's like, okay, if the government can actually like, if the government don't clap back and give Durk some of these things he's asking for, then I'll throw my hands up and say, okay, maybe the case wasn't as strong as it looked to begin with. And that's just facts. Okay. So as I say, right, it says even the government has to admit a defendant is entitled to know the time, place, and circumstances of a transaction giving rise to the charge. But the government nonetheless argues that the indictment here suffices because the information the defendant requests, the specific language defendant used in ordering a bounty and directing his co-conspirators are not operative or central facts to the case. Okay. And basically the information sought is the words he used in offering a reward to the killers of his rival, or in giving directions to others, and not elements of the offense. The information the defendant seeks is merely the details of acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. And then it says, hang on a sec, it says that the bounty offer, however, is a necessary transaction giving rise to a murder for hire charge. And basically it says, you know, in prosecution for this charge, you need to basically receive a promise or agreement to pay something of a pecuniary value as consideration for murder. It's an essential element of the offense. And I actually agree with that. Okay. For this to be a murder for hire charge, you need to offer something in exchange. It's not a conspiracy to murder charge. It's a murder for hire charge. Now, I wonder if they just went on, oh, he booked a private jet so everybody could just get over there and do a murder, but he didn't offer them money in exchange for the murder. That might be conspiracy to murder, because you part of the conspiracy. You saying, yo, like, I'm one of your guys is like, yo, I would totally kill Quando Rondo, but I'm stuck in Chicago and I'm broke right now. And if you pipe up and say, well, look, I'm trying to see that happen, let me gas up the private jet because I can afford that, and I'm gonna take you. I'm gonna get you guys plane tickets. I'm gonna gas up the private jet, and the guy's gonna come meet me. We're all gonna fly to LA, and he's gonna hop off and go buy you guys ski masks. So I'm gonna kick back and watch the news. That's definitely a conspiracy, but yeah, that's fair. That might not necessarily constitute a murder for hire. But okay, but like, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. It's like all the state have to do is clap back and go, yeah, sure, all right. DD got given a verse on Loyal Bros 2 in exchange for taking part in the hit. Boom, done, finished, over with. If you show me any text message, any tweet, just any communication where Durk's basically saying, yo, get DD on Loyal Bros 2, man, because he really put in work with that Quando hit. Cooked, finished. And it's not that hard. People are like, what evidence have they got on Durk? Shit tons of evidence. And then like a piece of something like that, cooked, charbroiled, man. Okay, so what we end up seeing here on page 6, right? Basically, they're going to explain, because didn't Durk participate in the stalking or killing personally, his role being remote, okay, his role being remote, not actually being there and being involved in the murder, but remotely, you know, work from homing, if you will, on this murder for hire. They're saying it's only proven by the directions that he gave, which the government hasn't provided. Okay, so set aside the bounty. They're trying to say if Durk's involved in this, he needed to have directed people and told people what to do and called shots. And they're basically saying the government hasn't provided this. It can't be true. And once again, I just want to say the private jet, I think, is another smoking gun in this. Okay, because they're saying he didn't participate in the stalking or killing himself. Look, it says here, and because Mr. Banks did not himself stalk anybody, shoot anybody, possess a gun in furtherance of that, that stalking, the means and manner of his alleged remote participation, i.e. the directions he allegedly gave others, are essential to the case against him on counts 3, 4, 5. Those directions are in fact the only transactions giving rise to those charges as it relates to Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks is entitled to know the government's essential theory, the who, what, where, when, and how on these essential points. I wonder if one of the wheres is going to be on a private jet, and if the when is going to be during that private jet flight to LA, and the how is going to be enabled by private jet travel, and the who is going to be all the guys that were at the scene shooting at Quando Rondo, and the what being go kill Quando Rondo and slide for Von. I wonder, because if the state clap back with all that stuff filled in, it's over with. Okay, so after this, Durk's lawyers basically just make it very clear, okay, they want to get the who, what, when, where, and how, okay, and what's really interesting is they give a great example. They compare it to a wire fraud case, and I think this is a kind of helpful way of understanding it, but also I feel like it's kind of not really enough to really prove anything to me. So it says, the government obscures things when it argues that the words used themselves are not essential elements of the offense. Consider a charge that we more commonly see in federal court, wire fraud. Imagine an indictment that alleges the following. At some point between November 2020 and August of 2022, the defendant made material misrepresentations about investment opportunities to Wilson and others in order to cause them to part with certain valuable possessions and/or money. It would be beyond reasonable dispute that this language fails to put the defendant on notice of the charges against him. It does not enable him to prepare his defense, to assert that he never made statements at issue, that they were not false and that they were not material, or that they were not designed to cause victims to part with money or property, among many other potential defenses. It does not protect against double jeopardy in a subsequent prosecution. The government would argue that these other statements form the basis for the new wire fraud charge. What is more, it obliterates the important function of the grand jury and permits the government to shift the theory as the case progresses. Okay, I also agree with this. I actually agree with this because I feel like what they're saying is basically, look, you were supposed to submit your evidence to the grand jury and you're kind of changing the evidence. You're not giving it up. Now the state is saying we're trying to protect the integrity of and safety of our witnesses and their families. Fair enough, but I think it's time for them to give up the information and let everybody know. I think the grand jury has probably seen stuff that's been redacted and protected from the public. Maybe they'll submit stuff and still redact it from the public. I think that would be a shame, but if that's what they got to do, that's what they got to do. But I do feel like, okay, fair enough. Durk, you do have a right to know exactly what the state think, where, when, and how the offer was made and the direction was made. But this isn't a wire fraud case, and the people's lives are at risk, their families' lives are at risk. So I do feel like this is definitely different. But it all depends what the government are going to clap back with. Okay, so now we get to page 7, and here they basically say that Durk doesn't actually want the actual details of the evidence. It says a bounty offer is essential to a murder for hire charge, as a material misrepresentation is to a wire fraud charge. And so they basically say that that's essential to the prosecution. It says, to be clear, Mr. Banks is not requesting the details of the evidence the government will present at trial, i.e. the specifics, documents, texts, emails, cell site location info, or recordings the government will introduce, or the names of the witnesses who will testify in support of the government's theory. Yeah, no shit, because they're trying to protect them from being murdered by wild, out-of-control OTF members. But it basically says Durk just wants only the basic theory. It wants to know the theory behind it. It wants to know what's the theory, okay? What's the coded language? And they use another really good example later on this page as well, which I thought was fascinating. It says, Durk is only requesting the government's basic theory, without which he cannot adequately prepare for trial. By way of example, let's consider Mr. Banks' request for the particulars of the coded language he's alleged to have used to offer the bounty for Quando's murder. The issue of so-called coded language will loom large at this trial, with the government arguing the jury should assign certain meanings to facially ambiguous language, and the defense contesting those interpretations. Okay, and it says here the government even intends to call an expert who will testify in support of its interpretation of various terms such as get back and slide. Now I'm gonna have a field day with that stuff. But anyway, it says let's imagine that Mr. Banks is kept in the dark before trial about what coded language he allegedly used to offer the bounty. Then at trial, the following hypothetical, which is completely fictitious, a government witness testifies that Mr. Banks told him the eagle has landed, and in certain neighborhoods in Chicago, the eagle has landed means the speaker is offering a bounty for murder. Having heard these words and this interpretation for just the first time at trial, the defense will be unprepared to effectively cross-examine the witness about the meaning of these words. The defense will have done no research, conducted no investigation, lined up no witnesses to rebut that interpretation. That is the definition of trial by surprise, and it's a primary danger posed by a vague indictment. Once again, I do agree. I think if the government is saying it's coded language, what is the coded language? What were the words used so that they can debate it, right? And if it turns out that the eagle has landed is the type of thing that they've used, I'll soften up my position. I'm not going to lie. I'll put my hands up and say I'm wrong. I'll say maybe I was wrong to say that Durk was cooked. But if they come back and they say the coded language is it's time for get back, it's get back gang time, it's get back season. We're smoking on him anyway. Like, I want to see what that is. So I feel like it is only right that they request this get revealed. I think it would be right for the government to reveal this information. I think it's right for Durk to have a chance to prepare his defense at trial. So I do actually agree with that one. Now, later on here on page 8, it basically says that they need to say when and where things happen and gives another good example of why not having this will basically put them at a disadvantage in court. Okay, and it talks all about trial by surprise. This is a danger posed by a vague indictment. You know, the defendant has not got a chance to actually properly look out for themselves. And here it kind of breaks down some backstory. It says the same goes for the other information that Durk requests in a bill of particulars, including the date and location of the alleged bounty offer. The indictment lists no location of the alleged offer, and it alleges a nearly 2-year time frame in which the bounty offer could have occurred. If the defense hears for the first time at trial that the bounty offer was conveyed, for example, in a coffee shop in Chicago on January the 5th, 2021, they'll be scrambling to figure out whether Mr. Banks was even in Chicago in January 2021. There may be a witness who would have testified that Mr. Banks was actually in Atlanta at that time. But the defense would have been deprived of the opportunity to locate and call that witness. The Sixth Amendment guarantees Mr. Banks and all persons charged with crimes more notice than that. Once again, totally agree. I think that they need to make it very clear when this offer of a bounty was made. If they don't, I'm going to think that they got a flimsy argument, but I think it's likely they're going to clap back and they're going to drop a bombshell. I think the next paperwork from the government, they're going to go, all right, bet. Boom, 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 boom. Here's a bunch of offers. Here's a bunch of... If they don't, I'll throw my hands up and say, okay, the case was flimsy. But I was always under the understanding that they were going to have a lot of info in this one. So after this, okay, there's a bunch of other case law that's here that's not really that interesting, if I'm completely honest with you. But then on page 9, we're kind of getting to some of the final and really juicy bits. You know, section 3, it basically summarizes and says the info must not exist if the government haven't presented it when asked. And that is cap. It says, if that doubt-eliminating discovery existed, the government would certainly have cited it in its opposition. Now, that's not necessarily true because they're trying to protect the integrity of their witnesses and their safety. They've been trying to hold stuff, keep it close to their chest, because they said the OTF operates like the Mexican mafia and that they will ruthlessly kill anyone involved in this case and their families, all right? So they said, yet it does not, indeed, nowhere does the discovery set forth anything resembling a fixed or coherent theory of the time, place, or circumstances of the bounty allegations or at the discretion of allegations. On the contrary, the discovery reveals government witnesses who are constantly changing their stories. Now, this is interesting because this is where they begin to accuse the snitch of lying, but I'm going to point out a very important detail here that kind of trashes this argument, in my opinion, in my humble, not trying to get sued, but also like keeping it very real with my audience, unlike a lot of other people commitment. Okay, it says, on the contrary, the discovery reveals government witnesses who are constantly changing their stories. PW1, for example, has asserted that there was no bounty at all. Now, what this bit is probably the juiciest thing in this video. They're going to clip this, you know what I'm saying? Make sure you don't skip this, all right? They're going to skip this. They are definitely going to skip this, right? It basically says, okay, they asserted there was no bounty at all, and he did not agree to murder Quando Rondo for monetary gain, and he did so under duress. Hold that thought. So they're saying that the witness, all right, the witness has asserted there was no bounty at all and he didn't agree to murder Quando Rondo for monetary gain. He did it under duress. He did it out of pressure, out of fear. He was under pressure. But as one might expect in a murder for hire prosecution predicated on the existence of a bounty, he rises to meet the occasion. They're saying that he's changing his story to fit in with what the charges are. And then it says in one government proffer session, PW1 recounted how Mr. Wilson allegedly stayed behind in Los Angeles after the other participants flew out in order to collect the bounty money for their distribution. PW1's story is, however, flatly contradicted by the objective evidence. The government's realization that PW1 lied here is likely why, between the first superseding indictment and the second superseding indictment, it deleted language alleging that Mr. Wilson paid out the bounty after excuse me, after Survivor Robinson's homicide. It says, when the government witnesses are constantly changing their stories about crucial facts, as the Discovery catalogues here, Mr. Banks's defense must take aim at a moving target. That's fundamentally unfair. Now, this is juicy as hell, because this is one of the first like insights unredacted that we've had into what these witnesses are saying. But there's going to be more coming, but I'm just going to explain to you why there's actually some cap in here. There's some cap in these raps, okay? Because they're basically saying, okay, the government witness is constantly changing his story. He said that there was no bounty at all. He didn't agree to murder for monetary gain. He did so under duress. Now, here's what they're forgetting, because, again, a lot of meat riders are taking this information and they're basically saying, oh, the witnesses are lying. It's all cap. The whole thing is thrown out. No. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's certainly cap. Just because this one person who is now snitching said, I didn't, and also, I believe from the language here, it's basically saying that that confidential witness is one of the people that was there, the one unnamed person that was there shooting at Quando Rondo, because it says he didn't agree to murder him for monetary gain. He did so under duress. So he was involved in the murder, whoever this witness is. And what's really interesting is basically saying he did so under duress. Now, that's fine, okay, if he's then saying later on, oh, well, Mr. Wilson, had a bounty for distribution. This contradicted the objective evidence. And then basically, like, he did it under duress. But there's numerous people involved in this. So just because one person did it for duress, okay, doesn't mean another person didn't get paid. One person, well, I'm going to keep this very real, okay? One person could do the hit for money. One person could do the hit because they love Durk. One person could do the hit because they basically are scared of Durk and that they need to toe the line. They're doing it under duress. They think something will happen to their family if they're not on board. Maybe Durk's threatened them. Maybe they know what's going on with I think they're saying it was the same confidential witness that was riding around with Booney Mo going to kill O-Block members because they weren't sliding for Von. So one person could do it for money, one person could do it under duress, one person could do it for the love, and another person could just do it out of straight bloodlust because they want to catch bodies. Because there was a whole bunch of people in that car. So just because, and again, this is just my opinion, all right? But just because this paperwork says, well, this person said there was no bounty at all right? Where did it say that? Again, we're going to need to see the quote, but I wonder whether Durk's lawyers are kind of twisting this and saying, well, if he said he didn't agree to murder Quando for money, then there's no bounty at all. Not necessarily true. Durk could have put up the bounty. Durk could have put up the bounty, and some people would like, bro, I ain't got to do that for bread. Like, I'm sliding for Von for free. I'm down, or I'm scared for my life. They could go and tell the feds afterwards, oh, I was scared for my life. But really, at the time, they was like, bro, you don't need to pay me. I'm trying to catch, bro, killing Quando Rondo. That's a famous hat. That's an expensive hat. I'll do that for free. None of that necessarily means just because, like, let's say 3 out of the 4 people didn't do it for money, they did it for the love, and one of the people got paid and it was a bounty, or they got paid in the form of a verse. Hey, Dee Dee, jump on this track on Loyal Bros 2. Murder for hire, still murder for hire. So I don't think this is the reverse smoking gun that people think it is. I think it's actually possible that they're reaching here. That's possible. I'm not saying absolutely true. This is just my opinion. Absolutely my opinion. This is not fact. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not qualified legally. I'm just a nerd with some glasses, basically doing some reading. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. And now they're saying, oh, well, Mr. Wilson allegedly stayed behind after the other participants flew out in order to collect the bounty money. Now, that isn't necessarily true. Where's the proof of that? It says this is contradicted by the objective evidence. Okay, you're telling the state, oh, show us the evidence. Well, you show us the evidence then. Durk's team, show us the evidence. What are you saying? That everybody left and then Mr. Wilson, Dee Dee stayed around to pay a bounty, but then they can prove that everybody had left the state? Are they saying that, oh, Durk left the state, but Dee Dee was still there and the money wasn't distributed? If the reward for being part of this murder for hire is a verse on the new Durk album and it's musical opportunities, as the state have said, well, there ain't no bounty money for opportunity. So ain't no bounty money for distribution after this fact. So honestly, I feel like this looks really good, but I actually feel like substantially it's not as good as people are making it out to be. Now, after this, we basically see that Durk's lawyers are saying the government can't keep changing their story and picking the best version at trial. I sort of agree with this, but I also think that, like, I don't think the government is doing as bad as they're suggesting here. I don't think the government is picking whatever version of the story they want at trial. I think they're kind of just seeing some of the nonsense that Durk's lawyers are doing, and then they're basically just going, all right, forget it. I think they slipped up. They put the wrong evidence forward when they said, oh, Lil Durk used the audio of Quando screaming no in the song. That wasn't true. They had the wrong link. They had a fan-made link. But Durk is on the song ad-libbing talking about no. So it's true, but somebody was sloppy with their job and they left that out of the second version of the superseding indictment. The way that Durk's lawyers are painting it, it's like, oh, you're picking and choosing and you're not including things that you included because they're working out to not be true and then you're dropping them. I don't think that's really what's going on. And they do make a sort of very harsh explanation, and I think it is maybe not quite accurate entirely. But, you know, I do have agreed with some of the things that have been said here, but like generally, I feel like this is slightly a reach. So it says the government should be clear with Mr. Banks and the court about its theory of prosecution. Which iteration of its witnesses' ever-changing stories will it stand behind at trial? Now, as I've just explained to you, I think that they're trying to frame this confidential witness as changing his story more than perhaps he really did. And I want to see their evidence as to why this is contradicted by the objective evidence. What evidence? They're saying, oh, the government's realization that PW1 lied here is likely why. Well, prove that he lied. You haven't proved that he lied, just like the state hasn't proved exactly when Durk put the hit out. So you kind of, it's the pot calling the kettle black a little bit, right? It says, which iteration of its witnesses' ever-changing stories will it stand behind at trial? It says, importantly, the government is not free to simply pick its favorite version. If the government told the grand jury, again, this scenario is completely fictitious, that the coded bounty offer was the Eagle Has Landed, made in a coffee shop in January 2021, and the grand jury indicted Durk based on that theory, the government can't switch it up simply because its witnesses' stories became more convincing over time. I don't think that's what the state are doing. But I think that is honestly, that's like a really convenient way to frame it. Now, later on here, they basically say if an indictment is this vague, it must be dismissed. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. Under case law, when an indictment is as vague as this, it's defective and must be dismissed. In the words of the Ninth Circuit, if a bill of particulars were allowed to save an insufficient indictment, the role of a grand jury as an intervener would be circumvented. Rather, the assurance that a body of fellow citizens had asserted the facts and determined that an individual faced prosecution, the prosecutor would be in a position to second guess what actually happened within the grand jury and fill in the gaps with what he assumed transpired. The protection of a significant check on the power of the courts and prosecutors would thus be lost. For similar reasons, open file discovery cannot cure an invalid indictment. They're basically trying to say that, like, look, the prosecutors can't just come around and twist the evidence and add new things and drop earlier things after the grand jury have looked at the evidence and issued the indictment based on what that evidence is. But I feel like they're reaching and trying to make it look like that's what's happening, when really I think the government has been fairly consistent. They did slip up at one point with some of the evidence, but I feel like the government has actually been quite consistent, and they're just trying to protect their witnesses and their families. So I feel like the government... Let me read the last page, and I'll just tell you how I think this is going to go going forward, okay? This is the last page. This is the most explosive page, basically, right? It says both in its bill of particulars down the road, at trial, the government is not permitted to prosecute Mr. Banks on allegations other than those presented to and approved by the grand jury. That's not happening. The Constitution does not permit the government or its cooperators eager to say what they must try to save their own skins to fill in the gaps. I don't think that's what's happening. It says, for the reasons set forth in Mr. Banks' motion and above, defendant Durk Banks respectfully requests that the court dismiss the indictment against him as unconstitutionally vague. In the alternative, the court should order the government to produce the requested bill of particulars, comparing it with the grand jury transcripts in camera, in order to ensure that the government does not impermissibly shift its theory of prosecution. Now, this is all about to get juicy, because basically what this is saying is that the next paperwork, the next thing that the government submits, will either reveal all the details, all right, and then we will know for sure if Durk is truly cooked, and, you know, they're going to have to cross-reference that to what was presented to the grand jury. Now, here's the thing. Just because the government are basically dropping some things that were presented to the grand jury, for example, this version of the song where you hear Quando screaming no, when in reality Durk is on the song screaming no, but they used the wrong song, they messed up, they used the wrong link. I don't think that's a problem. I think taking that away and just saying we presented all this stuff to a grand jury and then this was kind of screwed up, that we kind of did that wrong and we need to get this one right. That's not, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't feel like that's a huge deal. You're basically saying like, okay, well, look, this particular bit of evidence that we submitted that they approved isn't quite useful to us. We're just going to throw that in the trash right now. We're just going to keep going with all the stuff we had that is airtight. I don't see the problem with that. I feel like Durk's legal team, they're definitely making good moves. They're probably making the best of a bad situation with this. But again, if the government claps back and they say, well, the grand jury saw a bunch of transcripts from a conversation with a confidential witness where he made it very clear that I took part in the murder of the attempted murder on Quando Rondo that resulted in Lil Pab's death under duress because I was scared of what Durk was going to do, but other dudes were offered 50 grand. Diddy was offered a verse on the album, and, you know, basically, like, as far as I was aware, you know, like Didi was basically gonna break bread off for everybody in In-N-Out Burger, and that's what ended up happening. Or oh, everyone left in the end, so you know Didi ended up getting his verse. And again, it's like this idea that just like, oh, defendant Wilson was giving up the was divvying up the bounty, and this is untrue. Well, DeAndre Wilson ended up on the album with Durk, and if it's all well and good if he was promised, look, you're gonna get a verse on the album, everyone else is getting 10K, and nobody else got their 10K, but he got his verse on the album, bro, murder for hire, done. So I do think that this is massive. I think this is actually a real turning point. This is basically the moment where it's like Lil Durk's legal team could come back and just punch the state in the chest and just say like, yo, like, you're gonna have to show us something now. And if the state clap back and they say, well, here you go, we presented all this to the grand jury, we've been knowing this stuff. This is when you offered it. Yeah, you was in the coffee shop in 2021 talking about the Eagles landed, all right? And then Durk's team are going to have to scramble. But and I'll keep it very real, I always felt like Durk cooked in my soul. But at the same time, bro, I'll throw my hands up if Durk beats this, or if the state can't come back with something solid, like to actually give the date and time and the particulars of this, unless the only other Hail Mary would be that the judge steps in and says, no, you guys are doing too much. I'm with the state. We need to protect the witnesses' identities. I know what's going on, and I'm going to let it slide. That's going to be a really bad look for Durk. So there's three real scenarios that could come out of this. Two of them are very, very bad for Durk. One of them is like disproportionately OP good for Durk. And look, I'll just keep you guys updated on that. Okay, I know this was a long video, but I really wanted to just dig into this paperwork. Anytime new paperwork drops that I think is genuinely interesting, I will break it down in full detail. So I hope you found that interesting. I feel like I would have said before this, I would have said I was probably 90 to 95% sure that Durk was cooked. I would say after seeing this, I would say I'm probably like 85% sure that Durk's cooked. But I'm not going to lie. There was stuff in here that made me think like, okay, if the state don't clap back with something solid, I'm going to start thinking maybe they didn't have the case that I thought they did. But just as easily, they could clap back and go, all right, here's a whole bunch of evidence. Now what? And that would be devastating for Durk. So look, all right. People think I'm biased. No bias. I've just read you the whole thing. I've given you all of my opinions. I've told you what I liked, told you what I didn't like. I told you what I feels good. I'd say right now I'm putting the odds at 85% Durk's going to lose the case. But shoot, man, like if the state don't clap back, that might go down to 60. It might go down to 50. And before I might be at 40% if in the near future. Okay. So thank you for watching. Thanks for all your support, man. I'm actually low-key super sleepy right now, so I need to just go and chill, go to bed. I'm going to get up early tomorrow. It's a very, very busy day for me today, but I'm very excited. I'm working on a crazy, crazy project on the main channel, right? Go and watch the full-length 6ix9ine video if you didn't, all right? And I know that maybe some of the content I've been putting out on the main channel hasn't quite hit the spot. I agree with you. I feel like I've not put my full effort, or if some cases I've not put any effort into some of the videos on the main channel, but that's all about to change, and trust me, this next thing I'm about to drop on the main channel, I might have to go into hiding after I drop it because it's going to be absolutely insane, and I'll update you on that very soon. Just need probably a couple of weeks, and it's going to be out of control. I can't wait to show you what I'm working on, but it's actually wild. I'm actually scared. But anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching this long breakdown. Love to the gang. Trap More Nation. Shout out my Trap disciples, man. I'll see you in the next video. Durk is coming home, man. Durk is coming home. I know that's what you want to hear. And I'm here to say it to you, okay? I'm going to tell you everything that you want to hear in this video, and I'm going to read all of the comments that have been absolutely trashing me for my last video. Look, I'm going to just keep it very real with you, okay? I just want to make a few things very clear, okay? This channel, this is my second channel. This has always been my unscripted channel where I share my opinions. I while out. I do funny stuff. I used to buy rappers merch. If you've really been locked in with the channel for a long time, you'll know years and years and years ago, one of the first things that I did on this channel was I bought a bunch of merch from Pooh Shiesty and got scammed, and I didn't get any of the actual merch that I ordered, okay? And that was the whole thing. Right, and I think I did end up victorious in that, and I did get my money back for that. But anyway, this channel has always been a little bit of a laugh to me. It's always been a place for me to share my opinions. Now, a lot of people really haven't been feeling my opinions lately, and that's okay. Okay, I'm entitled to my opinion. You're entitled to yours, and I love a discussion. That's why, even though these things that I'm going to be looking at today in this video are going to be unflattering and I'm probably going to hurt my feelings a little bit, I just try and keep it real with you guys. I just try and show you exactly what I'm feeling about things, exactly like why I feel certain things are happening and what my opinions are. That's what it's all about, okay? The whole point of this channel is to be a personal place for me to be honest with you guys, share my opinion, do my thing, while out. Low effort content. People saying, oh, you're making slop on this channel. Well, I'd make like very, very detailed, like very effort, time intensive content on my main channel. Like, I don't feel like slop is really a fair word, but it's like, bro, let me just cook on this channel. Like, I'm just cooking up, like having fun, just pressing record, giving my opinion, reacting to some stuff. Like, it really isn't that deep. But some people have taken things very, very much to heart. And I think today I'm just gonna try and give you guys what you want to hear. Okay, Durk's coming home. All right, they've got no evidence on him. They're just this just all made up. Everything's just made up. You know, nothing bad has ever happened to Quando Rondo in his life. He's just been riding off into the sunset ever since King Von passed away. And you know, Lil Durk is simultaneously not responsible for any crimes whatsoever, but also he's also the baddest, most scary, you know, demonic head honcho of all the gangs in Chicago. Okay, there you go. Like, you can have it. Okay, he's coming home. All right, he's coming home, and he's going to catch 1 million bodies when he comes home, and then we're also going to pretend those bodies don't exist. That's what we're going to do. Okay, so look, I dropped a video 12 hours ago. Okay, I've literally gone to sleep, woken up, and got straight back to it for you guys. All right, so you know, you can't say I'm not grinding. Durk's lawyers expose snitches for lying. Now, a lot of people were upset about this video. I said a few things in this video that pissed people off. I basically said, I'll show you what I said. You probably saw it, but if you didn't see it, I'll show you what I said. Because I said at the start, look, it's my opinion. It's always been my opinion that Durk's cooked. This isn't me, and we're going to get to the comments, but this isn't me saying, I hate Lil Durk. You're going to see all the comments. You hate Lil Durk. Nah, man, I've just been following this since it happened. Like, I've been following King Von's career closely before he died. The day that he died, I knew exactly what was going on. I was tapped into everything. I've been following Quando's career for years. Okay, when Lil Pab got killed, I was already very closely following this situation. I followed all the music that Durk dropped ever since, from the day that Lil Pab was killed. All right, right up to him getting charged with federal murder for hire charges. I followed everything. I see all the clues, all the breadcrumbs, all the lyrics, all of the self-snitching, all of the IG lies. I've seen all of it, and this is just me giving you my honest opinion. If you don't like it, then fair enough, man. Like, it's just, don't watch. But some people have been really upset by this. So I'll give you a little teaser of just what I said at the start of this video, and this kind of summarizes in a nutshell my feelings on the situation. Fresh new Lil Durk paperwork, and some people are saying that it's finally looking good for the boy Lil Durk. Now, I've said quite a few times on this channel that I personally think, in my personal, honest, own, personal, just me, not trying to get sued opinion, is that Lil Durk is perhaps cooked. He is perhaps overly cooked. He's perhaps grilled, charbroiled, perhaps. But realistically, a lot of people think that I'm capping. A lot of people think I've got the wrong opinion. That's just my personal opinion. I don't want people to get the wrong idea and think that I'm telling you for a fact, 100,000%. If it's not true, if I'm lying, I'm dying. That's just my opinion. A lot of people think that Lil Durk is going to beat this, and one of those people is my guy, Seti Nash. Shout out to Seti Nash. So shout out to Seti Nash, but this isn't a video about him, okay? This is about all of the people that really just want to be told that Durk is coming home. And right now, I don't feel like we've got the evidence. I don't feel like we've got the information. I don't feel like anybody can really, in good conscience, in good faith, say, yeah, Durk's coming home. People are on my case for saying that Durk's cooked, and I personally think that because of the evidence that I've seen, and also just following this story so closely for years, 5 years plus, really at this point, because I was digging into King Von back in 2019, before a lot of you had even heard of me. Okay, I was already digging into this situation. That's just all right. That's just my opinion. So look, we're gonna get into the comments, okay? I could just tell you guys what you wanted to hear. I could probably run it up. I could probably do more numbers, make more money, just telling you guys what you want to hear, saying that Durk's coming home, like it's all gonna be good, nothing wrong ever happened. They got no evidence. Oh, they got no evidence. That's what I keep seeing. Like, oh, the feds basically they got nothing on it. They got nothing on him, and I keep pointing out things that they have on him, but people don't like to hear that. But look, the comments absolutely ruined me in this, and I'm just gonna keep it well. I'm just gonna keep it real, okay? They're saying all of the Lil Durk D riders. Well, ain't that the pot calling the kettle black? TLR pretty much a cock holster at this point, and I assume they're talking about for Youngboy. All right, just because I'm a fan of Youngboy and I've followed the situation closely. Okay, people are saying, I'm basically saying the Lil Durk D riders all want to hear and be told and just be regurgitated that just Durk's coming home and just none of this evidence matters, and just the fact. Anyway, I'm going to try and be positive in this video, okay? But people basically saying, bro's riding YB like he wants to be his next baby mama. I ain't going to lie. Being YB's baby mama is probably more lucrative than what I'm doing now, and I ain't going to lie. Like, that's probably true. They're saying he's legit been saying Durk is cooked the entire time these videos came out. What are you talking about? People saying that's irrelevant to him being a wang rider. They're not really understanding, right? People saying, look, I'm the only blogger keeping the situation real. Just because he ain't lying to you like everybody else about Durk's situation and you don't like it. They're saying, how is he riding YB by keeping it real? You want him to be like every other blog saying Durk's just coming home so they get fans. They're saying Durk's in a box eating noodles and Youngboy is making $2 million a show. I did think that was interesting. People saying, I don't know about none of that. I F with TLR heavy for a while now, but he's been meat riding YB for sure. Okay, people saying I was saying the same thing every time he said it. All he does is peddle the nuts of top 5 and press along with the others. It's funny, right? Because it's like you be saying, "Oh, you're picking sides." Well, I rock with top 5 and I rock with Presto, and they got a crazy beef going on. Like I like Durk's music, I like Von's music, I like Youngboy's music, but really right now, Youngboy is a better role model for everything that's going on, really. But we're gonna see it, right? So this dude doesn't want Durk to get out. Not gonna lie, it's clear to see. It's like it's not that I don't want Durk to get out, but it's like if Durk is actually waging murder for hires in the streets that are then getting innocent people killed. Lil Pab was innocent just because he was on, just because Lil Pab was on a clubhouse making fun of Lil Durk's friends and saying that their breath stinks and they got bad teeth. That doesn't mean he deserved to die. They were trying to kill Quando Rondo. And Lil Pab had nothing to do with that situation. He wasn't even there when King Von got killed. So it's like, this dude don't want Lil Durk to get... It's not that I don't like Lil Durk. I don't like This Ain't What You Want. Almost Healed was a bad album. I want to see him do life. Nah, man. It's just like, bro, like... You're allegedly out here doing murder for hire and innocent... Lil Pab's mom needs some justice for her son. Lil Pab wasn't there when King Von died. What, Lil Pab made fun of somebody on Clubhouse, so he deserves to die? And, like, the guy allegedly who made it happen is, like, we just got to let him go because he makes good music. So I think he's just being real. People are always mad when the truth is literally in your face. You think he wrote the indictment. People are actually acting like I wrote the indictment. I'm just reading it, okay? Because then, if I'm really being honest, this is nothing much to go on saying Durk is getting out or he's cooked. But TLR really are fed. They think I wrote the indictment. It's flattering, but honestly, I didn't. He's bringing up info that even the feds may have not considered. He spent too much time around 6ix9ine. Too much? I spent 4 hours around him just last week. Like, that's fresh off the presses. What do you mean too much time? Like, I just met the guy, but okay, it's okay. I'm just going to take the criticism. I'm going to let it wash over me, okay? Because I keep it real. All right, I keep it real. I'm guessing he doesn't mess with Durk as much as he does Von. He was saying, bro, the feds definitely consider it. They have over 95% conviction, plus it's the government, which is unlimited funds, plus they have evidence Durk hasn't even seen. Once all that, plus the guy that's telling, come on, do the math, Durk is fried. I mean that with all good respect. So what? Durk is not a good person. Damn, so if Durk's fried, how long will he be in there? People saying, you are officially Durk's biggest hater. People saying, I was thinking this watching the entire video. I said, I'm starting to realize a lot of people want bro to stay locked up so bad. It's not that we want him to stay locked up. Like, I don't want Durk to stay locked up. I don't like, oh, little Durk's just annoying. Like, oh, I just want him to be locked up for fun. Like, we can't have a society where you just pull up and just shoot because you're trying to kill somebody over a beef and someone that has nothing to do with the beef gets killed. And we just say, Your Honor, like, look, they killed Lil Pab. Lil Pab had nothing to do with King Von's murder. And Lil Pab had his own case separately of the whole car theft ring or something that was going on that people want to just... So you've robbed Lil Pab's family of their child or their relative. He had nothing to do with the King Von situation. You robbed the people that Lil Pab had. Lil Pab never killed anyone as far as I know, but he had outstanding situations that he needed to have resolved. You robbed all those people of the justice. But, like, Your Honor, ma'am, like, we was trying to slide for Von. Like, the judge is going to, like, bang the gavel and just be like, man... He got in there, he did what he's supposed to do, man. You know what I'm saying? They was trying to slide for Von. Like, we just got to let it go. No, man. It's like, it's not that we want Durk to be locked up. Like, I want a society that abides by laws. Like, just because I love drill music and I study drill music artists, that doesn't mean that I want gang war to be prevalent across the streets all over America or the UK. Like, we need justice, man. Like, you can't do this. I'm sorry, but, like, you can't do this. You know what I mean? I'm going to say something crazy right now. Let's say instead of a murder for hire, it was 3 counts of grape. Would you be saying, a lot of people just want Durk to stay locked up so bad, man? Like, no, it would be a whole different story, man. And maybe it wouldn't. A lot of you guys would still be defending him, but it's like, in a society, man, we need rules. We need law and order. You can't just pop out at the Beverly Center and just spray everyone up and then just, well, you know, he was on Clubhouse. He was on Clubhouse making fun of Lil Vani's teeth. So it's okay that he died, man. Like, it's cool. We didn't get Quando. We slid for Von. You didn't slide for Von. You killed a guy who had nothing to do with it. Or I guess you killed one of his mans. You killed his cousin. Like, we can't live in a society where that's happening, man. And that's no disrespect to Durk, bro. Like, we can't have that. You all love King Von, but, like, King Von, if he didn't pass away, he would have been facing trial for all of those murders, and that would have been the right thing. Like, really, Lil Tim didn't create that situation, but taking Von's life, that robbed some people of their opportunity at justice too. So anyway, I'm going to keep going with these comments, man. I'm just trying to keep it very real with you, okay? Because I just feel like it's I want to educate everybody on why I think all of this sentiment here is actually very misguided, and I don't feel like you should really just like. I just feel like everybody just needs to simmer down a little bit and just understand. They're saying if he beats if he beats this, he needs to slide for Von. That's crazy. It says I mean, you didn't really slide for Von, did you? You killed someone that had nothing to do with the situation. It says, bring back the old, funny, non-clout chasing TLR. Now, I feel like if I was clout chasing, I would just tell you guys Durk's going to be home. And I did tell you that joshingly in this video, but it's like, I don't know. I've noticed in a lot of these comments, there's other comments here. It's like, bring back the old, funny, non-clout chasing TLR. Now, I feel like I had to stop making jokes when I started covering more of the murders and more of the gang warfare, which I feel like was something I was just personally interested in. It didn't seem funny to me. It didn't seem worthy of cracking jokes like I used to do. And, you know, I did a video on Meek Mill and Diddy recently that unfortunately got taken down. But that was a much more humorous, funny little video with loads of jokes in it. But, you know, I digress. I feel like I'm just trying to be honest, you know, bring back the old funny non-clout. Like, what would you like me to do a video where I just make fun of Durk, like, and how he's going to be spending all of, you know, how he potentially could be spending 30 years in jail? Like, I could come up with a bunch of little jokes about what he's going to be eating in the commissary. Like, you guys wouldn't like that either, you know. And I'm just trying to be real, give you guys my honest opinion in this situation. But yeah, there was a bunch of stuff here. You know, people were saying I watched him change the title 3 times. New paperwork changed everything. Might be coming home exposed snitches. This is why your comment section's turning against you. But wait a minute. It's called YouTube A/B testing. It's a program that YouTube offers where you can try different titles and thumbnails and use whichever ones get the most engagement. This is common knowledge. Anyone for half a brain anyway. I often do ABC test titles, thumbnails. I did it with not every single video, but I do it with a lot of videos. And you know what I'm saying? It's really not a big deal. People are really just looking for any excuse to come at me right now. And I think it's just because I'm just not being honest. This is a perfect example of why like this aren't expected. I think you meant accepted, buddy. You need to get yourself a dictionary out. In our culture, he gets on here and discredits Durk's innocence, but does a 4-hour stream praising 6ix9ine. SMH, it's sad. Like, what do you mean discredits Durk's innocence? I feel like, what innocence? Like, I didn't write this. I'm telling you, you guys, I know that you guys think that I'm the feds. I did not write this indictment. I did not write this indictment, bro. I'm reading it. I'm reacting to it. I'm giving my opinion. Like, I didn't. You're acting like I wrote the indictment, bro. And it's like, this is why you're not accepted in our culture. You get on here and discredit Durk's innocence, but do a 4-hour stream praising 6ix9ine. I didn't necessarily praise 6ix9ine, but I feel like 6ix9ine hasn't necessarily done the harm to the community that Lil Durk has done. I'm sorry. It seemed like he was really getting extorted by gang members, and they kind of slipped up by letting him in the fold. But anyway, that's fine. Now this is facts. When Durk gets free, I'm going to need witness protection. That is facts, okay? Because everybody's saying Durk's coming home. All right, everyone's saying Durk's coming home. So when Durk comes home, I am going to need witness protection. But hang on a minute, like. But if Durk's innocent and he doesn't murder people, then why am I going to need witness protection, right? Because you guys telling me that Durk never did nothing, he's innocent. So I don't need to worry about him, right? Like, if he didn't do nothing, right? Like, what? You saying I need witness protection? What? Because he might murder for hire me? Because so I might need witness protection because he'd be doing the, okay, yeah, you want to have it both ways. Okay. Saying Durk going to beat this case, man. Fair play if that's what you want to feel. Fair play. Shout out to Trenches News. He gave the same update. I went through the whole paperwork. And again, it's like, it's a little bit tiring because it's like, look, I just gave you guys a full 50-minute breakdown. I read the entire indictment to you with specific notes. I read the indictment first on my own. I wrote notes on everything so that you could understand and digest everything in there. I broke it down for you line by line. Like, I'm just doing my best to actually break down this paperwork. But I feel like a lot of you would probably rather just have people on Instagram just lie to you about the paperwork. I read the entire paperwork. And you know what I mean? I read the entire paperwork, but you read like a 1x extract on Twitter of half a page, and you feel like, just lie to me. Like, just tell me what I want to hear. I'm really sorry, right? And even if it loses me fans, like, I've always kept it real. I've always been factual. They're saying it sounds like he wants Durk to lose just to be right. I don't. And I actually said in this video several times, depending on what the state submit next is going to make a huge difference. And if they can't actually provide any of these things that they say they have, how Durk offered a bounty for the murder for hire, when he offered that bounty, and what direction he gave to other people to do this murder for hire, if they can't offer that, like I said, I feel like I'm going to start to feel like maybe he is going to beat this. But at the same time, I feel like this motion on its own isn't beating anything. This motion is basically an ultimatum. It's basically saying, show your cards, show me what you got. All right, show me what you got. And if the state can't show what they got, then I'm going to start saying, hang on a minute. You said you had this, but then you didn't have this. Because as far as I'm taking the state on their word that they have this, that, and the other, and I'm combining that with the fact that I've been following this story for 5 years, listening to every song, every lyric, every social media post, and I'm thinking it sounds like based on Durk's own statements that I've heard for 5 years straight, and what the state's saying in their indictment, that they're going to be able to prove this. But if Durk, and for shout out to Durk's lawyer, if Durk's lawyer basically says, look, show your cards, we need to know what you have, and the state basically can't, then I'm probably gonna start saying maybe Durk is coming home. But at this stage, I was just keeping it honest with you guys, okay? And saying it does sound like Durk wants to lose, Durk to lose just to be right. Well, if Vonnie was the link due to the jet, then Vonnie must be taking the stand to testify the conversation. Lol, make it make sense, dude. And if Vonnie was taking the stand, they would say they had a witness to take the stand to clarify it. Now, look. A lot of people want to make these statements. It's like, if Vonnie was the link due to the jet, then Vonnie must be taking the stand to testify the conversation. Not necessarily. I think if you were investigating somebody for murder for hire, okay, the murder hadn't happened yet, but okay, let's just say, all right, I'm just going to play devil's advocate. I think if you were investigating someone like Lil Durk, who has been involved in gang situations, maybe the pilot was listening to their conversation, maybe the airplane was bugged, maybe there's not going to be anything from the jet, or maybe there's going to be some messages. Like, I don't know, okay, and we want the state to reveal these things, but it's like, again, it's like people are just kind of being like, oh, there's absolutely no way. If Vonnie was taking the stand, they know we'd have it. It's like there's a bunch of different people that are taking the stand, and it's like Vonnie might have told somebody that Durk told him to do something. Like Vonnie was there buying things, giving them to other people. They're saying, damn, Traplaw Ross must really hate Durk, yet he loves Presser, top 5, 4 extra NBA. Quite interesting. I wonder why such vitriol for a human being is wild. Now, aside from the NBA, it's just like, Durk's the only one that's facing federal murder for hire charges currently, and some people are saying Durk's cooked, all right. Huge news for the unemployed, that is true. They're saying I repeated the same things 15 times in a row about the government not showing the public the jury. Yes, because that is true, and it was relevant a bunch of times. They're saying Didi was already getting verses since he beat a body a while back. It's the other guys who, if they got a verse, would be suspicious. They're saying, I wonder what y'all going to do for content when all these rappers you're trying to play feds on go and get convicted. There's always going to be something to talk about, man. They're saying this dude wants to be from America so bad. His attempts at using our slang is cringe AF. Look, I'm just being me, man, all right? So it's like, why? Nah, that's not really relevant, okay? But basically, they're saying the defense is saying show more evidence or Durk should be outside like Young and Ace since there's no evidence linking the bounty. And I agree, like, show us the evidence. So they're saying, look at some of the cases that Lil Durk's lawyer Drew Findling has won. I would bet my house that Lil Durk beats this case. I want your house, man. Like, bruh, I would not bet my house that Little Durk is going to beat this case. I'm really sorry, but like, I would not bet my house on that. Okay, and I'm just saying, like, all right, there's more. They're saying I'm biased as F when Lil Durk beats this. Stay on that side. All right. Also, being on a plane together is not solid evidence. The feds ain't showing solid evidence because they expect one of the defendants to switch. They're saying you're trying your hardest to make the prosecution's case for them. You're an arc. I'm just reading the paperwork. All right, I'm just reading the paperwork. So look, anyway, okay. I feel like there is basically a sort of weird thing going on at the moment where it's just like everybody just wants to be told Durk's going to beat this and Durk's coming home. That's just not my personal belief, but it's no disrespect. I think if the state can't provide a good comeback to this paperwork, then I will feel inclined to believe that Durk has a better chance of beating this. Now, if from there, Durk's lawyer snaps back with some even more like kind of difficult ultimatums for the state to provide things, and if the state can't provide them, then I'm going to start thinking maybe Durk's going to beat this. But it's like I said in the last video, like I'm feeling like I was 95% sure that Durk was going to lose, which is the same as the federal conviction rate. I've not plucked that number out of the sky. After this paperwork, I was feeling like maybe I'm a 90%, like the state's going to have to come back and seal this up. If the state don't come back with something solid, I said I'm going to probably go down to an 80% sure that Durk's going to lose. Now, again, this could go down and down and down, and before you know it, I might be thinking, yo, maybe Durk is coming home, but I haven't seen anything. I'm always going to keep it honest with you guys as my audience. I'm never going to fold under pressure to just say what people want for clout, and I feel like you guys need to just understand that, like, the reason that I do this, like, I do this for me, really. Like, I do this for me to share my opinions. It's a way for me to basically, look, I'll keep it real. This is a way for me to just monetize my opinions. How I'm feeling, how I woke up today feeling. This was on my mind. I saw the comments when I woke up and I was like, okay, let me address that. Let me talk about that. And yeah, I'm going to get paid for reacting to my comments, right? hey, listen, don't hate because I can just talk about what I feel like and get paid for it. But it's not about the money. It's about, this is a forum for me to express myself, to express how I feel, and I'm always going to be honest with you. I'm not going to pop out and say Lil Durk's coming home if I don't actually believe he's coming home. Even if one of the A/B tests on this title is that Durk is coming home, because I'm going to troll you guys for a little bit of engagement, and basically just the theme of this video is telling you guys what you want to hear. But anyway, look, I hope you found that interesting. I'm really excited to read the comments under this video. I'm possibly going to get roasted to death, and you guys are just going to absolutely just go hard at me for hating on Lil Durk and say I'm his biggest hater. Or maybe you guys will understand a little bit of where I'm coming from, to just say, like, this is me giving my honest opinion. Like, you're entitled to your honest opinions too, but, like, back it up with something. Like, if you think Durk is coming home and there's no evidence, like, let me know that, because I feel like I've seen some evidence. I feel like there's some stuff there, right? And I still feel like, to me, just personally, that him being on a private jet to Los Angeles on the day that this went down is very, very significant. That really, that detail made me go from really, like, is Durk definitely involved in that, to like, whoa, like, you flew there on a private jet with one of the guys that orchestrated this thing? Okay, like, that's, I'm gonna need to see what else they got on top of that, because that's crazy. Anyway, is what it is, man. I'm gonna come back with some more topics. I hope you found that interesting. I'm never, ever, ever gonna turn down, like, you know, a good back and forth, man. If you guys get in my comments and hate on me, we might have to run it back and I'll react to the comments in this video. Let me know what you think down below, man. Maybe you're gonna get some understanding. I don't have any personal vendetta against Durk, but, like, I do have a passion for law and order. Like, as much as I study gangs and I find them interesting, and I enjoy drill music, and I think drill artists are, you know, really incredible examples of overcoming adversity through art, we can't have just, oh, you're allowed to slide for people, and if you miss and hit the next person that had nothing to do with the situation, it's just cool. It's just cool. Think about your brother, your sister, your mother. If somebody did that, it's your mum just got killed. The police knock on your door and they say, I'm really sorry to inform you, your mother has been shot in the head in broad daylight in a busy street where this should never be allowed to happen. Wow, what happened? Someone was trying to slide on the ops and they nearly got them, and they're coming home because it's cool. That's all cool. That's fine. Absolutely not, man. Just to actually put yourself in those shoes it's not cool. It's not a civilized society. We love Durk's music. I'm a huge fan of Durk's music. All my life, they've been trying to hold me down, but we can't allow this behavior if that's what happened. Okay, so I'm excited to see the evidence. I'll see you there. Peace. Scrapmore gang, there's some new Durk paperwork that's just dropped. So let's get into it. So basically, Durk's imaginary manager, Durk All Day on Twitter, has been providing all of the paperwork recently. It's been really helpful. Shout out to them. I feel like it's extremely positive and transparent that somebody is actually archiving and documenting all of this paperwork so that everybody can see it and read it and make up their minds about what's inside this paperwork. So basically what's happened is we've got the latest update, and basically in this one, Durk, Dee, Boogie, and Brown Eyes have all filed a motion to dismiss, with prejudice, disqualify all charges and the entire prosecution team. So what this means, right? Basically, there's more to it. I'll just read the tweets. It says, Magistrate Judge Donahue and lead prosecutor AUSA Yaniello had received threats specifically that mentioned Durk and Dee. And we talked in previous videos about threats that have been made to the courthouse and prosecutors and judges and people that have been involved in this case basically being threatened by alleged OTF fans. And it appeared from the last paperwork that there was actually a mention of some redacted, sealed information that would seem to suggest that somebody involved in the crew had done something to had made, basically maybe was making it harder for witnesses to do their thing. So anyway, after this, it says the government relayed all those threats to all judges in the district, but not the defendants. It says the defense wasn't told until October, after months of litigation in front of judges who had been threatened and kept it quiet. So it says they want the whole thing dismissed, disqualification of the entire bench and the U.S. Attorney's Office. Judge Donahue received threats mentioning Durk in February, sat on it, and Durk was in front of that same judge in May for a detention hearing. Of course, she denied his release. Now, I would say that Durk's imaginary manager is maybe putting a little bit of his own opinion here when he says, of course, she denied his release. It seems like maybe he's inferring that there's a bias. So the judge, of course, the judge denied his release because there were threats being made. But anyway, I won't give any more analysis on that. So in this follow-up post, Durk's imaginary manager comments on the paperwork, and I do have the full paperwork, but right now I just want to read the tweets. It says, if the immediate dismissal or disqualification is not granted, it says, stop everything. The trial too. Have a hearing on who knew what. Oh, sorry. Have a hearing on who knew what and when. Threat-related materials or in-camera review of it. Give case to a judge outside of CACD. Basically, they want a judge, I guess, outside of California, and vacate all orders entered during the non-disclosure period. So I've got the full paperwork here. I haven't read through it and made notes and, put down kind of my thoughts on what's inside it this time. And I guess I'll just scroll through and, just read a couple parts that I guess are interesting. So it says here at the start, it says, for more than 7 months, the prosecution team concealed from the defendants that both the presiding magistrate judge and lead trial prosecutor received violent, case-specific death threats made while invoking the names of Durk Banks and DeAndre Wilson. This prolonged non-disclosure, compounded by undisclosed ex parte communications between the prosecution team and the bench about these threats, has irreparably compromised the structural integrity of these proceedings. By February the 25th, 2025, at the latest, the government and district court knew that Magistrate Judge Patricia Donahue had received 4 explicit voicemails threatening her life and courthouse personnel. On April the 25th, 2025, lead prosecutor AUSA Ian Yaniello received similar death threats directed at him and all courthouse staff. The U.S. Attorney's Office, in carrying out a secret investigation, relayed the threats to all judges in the Central District of California, including this court. Yet defendants learned nothing of these threats until October the 1st, 2025, after months of litigation before judges who knew of the threats but remained silent and just days before pre-trial motions were due. Threats of violence against judges and prosecutors strike at the heart of our constitutional order. When individuals seek to intimidate those administering justice, they attack not just individuals but the rule of law itself. The undersigned and their clients unequivocally denounce the reprehensible threats against Judge Donahue, the AUSA Yaniello, and the courthouse personnel. The government's response to these threats, however, concealing them while continuing to prosecute defendants before judges who were themselves intended targets, violated fundamental constitutional guarantees. The prosecution's 7-month silence deprived defendants of their 5th and 6th Amendment rights to due process and an impartial tribunal. During this period, defendants unknowingly litigated critical matters, including detention proceedings and pretrial motions, before judicial officers operating under the cloud of undisclosed threats. This concealment prevented defendants from seeking recusal, challenging the fairness of proceedings, or making informed strategic decisions. The resulting appearance of partiality, amplified by ex parte discussions between the bench and prosecution about threats directly implicating defendants, has created an incurable breach of judicial neutrality that no less a remedy than full recusal of the Central District Bench can cure. They want the whole district bench recused. The integrity of criminal prosecutions depends on transparency and impartiality. Here, both were fatally compromised because these violations strike at the core of due process and the constitutional guarantee of receiving fair hearings in front of an impartial decision maker. Dismissal is the only adequate remedy. Additionally, the line prosecutors, especially AUSA Yaniello, must be barred from participating in the prosecution of this case, and because it appears the entire U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California participated in the investigation, the entire office must be disqualified. Finally, given that USAO sought a superseding indictment against the defendants just days after being directly threatened in their name, the indictment must be dismissed. The fact that USAO concealed the information and only revealed it to support its extraordinary motion to impanel an anonymous jury demands that the indictment be dismissed with prejudice. No lesser sanctions can restore public confidence in the fairness of this prosecution or cure the prejudice flowing from the months of secret communications and judicial proceedings conducted under these extraordinary circumstances. Now, we have already talked about in previous videos how, some of this stuff was already mentioned, and it was disclosed, I think, at the start of October. But this basically just kind of you know, it breaks down their timeline of like how this all was, how this played out, and then how it was actually presented in a way that Durk and his team found out about it. It says February the 22nd, 2025, 4 threatening voicemails to Judge Donahue referencing Durk and threatening her. I think is it a woman? I don't know if it's a woman or a man, threatening them, Judge Donahue, and courthouse personnel. 3 days after that, on February the 25th, USMS contacts Chambers and USAO. FBI opens an investigation. S.A. Cochran becomes FBI point of contact and actively investigates threats. Now, if you are one of the people that think it is cool to call up a courthouse and threaten a judge on behalf of OTF, you're a dummy, and the FBI will be on your ass. And, you know, who knows if that's a good thing. April the 28th, 2025. Threatening call was made to AUSA Yaniello. Yaniello. That's a crazy name. It kind of rolls off the tongue, Yaniello. With death threats to AUSA Yaniello and courthouse USAO personnel. On May the 1st, 2025, the United States Attorney's Office... I'm tired of this nonsense, man. Obtained a second superseding indictment in this case, docket 147. May the 8th, 2025, detention hearing before Judge Donahue, threat still undisclosed to defense. June the 2nd, 2025, detention hearing and pre-trial motion hearing on defendant's motion to disclose grand jury transcripts before Judge Fitzgerald. Threat still undisclosed to defense, continued detention ordered, ruling pending on motion to disclose. August the 6th and 13th, 2025, there were conferences between prosecution team and undersigned defense counsel, RE anonymous jury, and the threats were still undisclosed. So they're saying all of this time passed, you didn't disclose the threats. And then it says October the 1st, 2025, first partial disclosure of threats by the government. Defense makes oral demands for immediate disclosure of all relevant material. Oh, God. Oh, I'm tired. My yawn, me saying I'm tired of this nonsense is just me tired of doing all this work. There's been stuff behind the scenes that's pissed me off. That's not me talking about what's actually in here, but I'm sure some people might not take that way. It says October the 1st, 2025, first partial disclosure of threats by the government. Defense makes oral demands for immediate disclosure of all relevant materials and communication about the threats. October the 9th and 14th, 2025, the defense wrote discovery demand letters. October the 23rd, 2025, the government's letter and selective disclosures about threats. Okay, and then this details the threats. You know, somebody basically called, they mentioned Durk and Dee Dee by name and says, if they get life, I'm going to burn this something to the ground. I'm talking about the world. I'm going to burn it to the ground. On the voicemails, the caller urges the judge to do the right thing and free Durk and Dee Dee. Okay. And basically, it just goes on to detail that. And we've detailed that in other videos, and they're basically just, you know, it's a very long document. It's a 48-page document. I didn't do what I did last time because I don't think that was well received. But yeah, you can go and check this out on Durk All Day on Twitter. You can kind of go and make your own conclusion about this. It's 48 pages, so go and check out that document, man, and go and make your own mind up about this document. So. Yeah, well, there you have it, right? They want to disqualify all judges of the United States District Court for the Central District of California, and they want to just dismiss the second superseding indictment with prejudice. Basically, just have this whole thing go away. Is that likely to happen? Couldn't possibly say. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, and if you enjoyed this video, let me know. If you didn't, let me know, man, and I'll be back with some more content, and you know, we'll just see how this develops from here. Hope that was a good one. Bye.
Remember, whenever Seti Nash say something, what happens? A lot of people eventually have to join our bandwagon. So with that being said, Durk and them have a strong case to go ahead and get rid of the whole entire indictment. And it's not just Durk, it's everybody involved in the damn case. Check this out. This right here is why you have billion-dollar lawyer. This right here is what y'all been waiting for. And some people been saying, it's like, yo, Nash, what do you think is going to happen with the stuff that they're already finding out? And I'm going to be fair. Everybody says the same thing. I don't know, because if I did, I'd be a billion-dollar lawyer. So let's get on with it. United States versus Durk, Banks, and all the defendants, basically. Notice of joint motion and joint motion to disqualify, dismiss indictment, vacate scheduling order, reopen pretrial hearings, and for an evidentiary hearing based on 5th and 6th Amendment violations. Defendant Durk Banks, DeAndre, David, ASA, by and through their respective counsel, hereby files this joint motion to disqualify all judges of the United States District Court for the Central District of California under 28 U.S.C. 455, disqualify the United States Attorney's Office for the Central District of California, dismiss the second superseding indictment with prejudice, vacate the scheduled order contained in docket 220, reopen pretrial hearings for an evidentiary hearing based on violations of defendant's Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights. Defendants request that the court follow the same procedure that the late Judge Manuel El Rio implemented in United States versus Stewart. Y'all know we probably need to look at that before we even go forward. When presented with a similar motion, docket 47, upon receiving defendant's motion to recuse the entire court, Judge Rio referred the matter to the Chief Justice. See also docket number 52, Ninth Circuit Order, under 28 U.S.C. 292B, designating district judge from District of Oregon to temporarily perform the duties of district judge for the Central District of California for the specific case, United States versus Stewart. This joint motion is based on the attached memorandum of exhibits and the files and records in this case, and any other evidence or argument that the court may permit. And you see they got everybody on this one right here. Notice of motion. This is where they basically gonna say, this is what happened, and then we're gonna go through it. But don't worry, we're gonna pop in and out on this one because lordy. And no, I'm not gonna read all 50 goddamn pages, but it is what it is. Defendant Durk Banks, DeAndre Dontrell Wilson, David Brian Lindsay, and Asa Houston, by the respective undersigned counsel, hereby submit this joint motion to disqualify under 28 U.S.C., dismiss indictment, vacate schedule order, reopen pretrial hearings, and for an evidentiary hearing pursuant to the local rules the parties met and conferred on October 12, 2025, during which counsel for the government indicated that they opposed this motion. Of course they would. The government requires until December 1st, 2025 to respond to this joint motion, whereafter the defendants request until December 8, 2025 to reply. The parties request that the court refer this matter to an out-of-district judge for hearing as soon as practicable. So basically, a judge that was threatened was the one making the decisions. How that happens, I don't know, because some judges really believe, oh, I am not affected by this, but they used the whole entire case that was already done before, saying, yo, a judge already had a similar situation like this. This is what actually happens. The freaking, the feds are so scared now. They like, oh shit, no, push this, let's not hurry up and have this. No, let's not put a time, no, let's hurry up and go. You wanna know why? Because if everything that is said to the T in that last part is done now, they're gonna throw this damn case out. This looks insane. Basically, there's another similar situation. They already have another situation just like this. The case got dismissed. We need that same shit. Roll it. So here, the table authorities, they start going in, bro. When you start seeing, God dang, bro. When you start seeing all these statutes and all these prior cases that we can point to in situations like this, just know. And we're probably just going, I don't know, we're going to skim through this probably. But we'll see. If it just keeps on getting good, we'll have an hour-long video. It is what it is. Memorandum of Points and Authorities Introduction. For more than 7 months, the prosecution team concealed from defendants that both of the presiding judge, and their lead trial prosecutor have received violent, case-specific death threats made while invoking the names of Durk Banks and DeAndre Wilson. This prolonged non-disclosure, compounded by undisclosed ex parte communications. Y'all remember ex parte in the YSL case with Thug and Woody in them, right? All right, cool. Between the prosecution team and the bench about these threats has irreparably compromised the structural integrity of these proceedings. By February 25th, 2025, at the latest, so they saying we don't even know when it began so far, the government and the district court knew that the magistrate judge, Patricia Donahue, had received 4 explicit voicemails threatening her life and courthouse personnel. On April 28, 2025, lead prosecutor AUSA Ian Yanello received similar death threats directed at him and all courthouse staff. The United States Attorney's Office, in carrying out a secret investigation, relayed the threats to all judges in the Central District of California. You gotta be kidding me.
So, including this court. Yet, defendants learned nothing of these threats until October 1st, 2025, after months of litigation before judges who knew of the threats but remained silent, and just days before pretrial motions were due. Threats of violence against judges and prosecutors strike at the heart of our constitutional order. When individuals seek to intimidate those administering justice, they attack not just individuals, but the rule of law itself. And the undersigned and their clients unequivocally denounce these reprehensible threats against Judge Donahue, AUSA, Yanello, and courthouse personnel. The government's response to these threats, however, concealing them while continuing to prosecute defendants before judges who were themselves intended targets, violated fundamental constitutional guarantees. The prosecution's 7-month silence deprived defendants of their Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights to due process and an impartial tribunal. During this period, defendants unknowingly litigated critical matters, including detention proceedings and pretrial motions before judicial officers operating under the cloud of undisclosed threats. This concealment prevented defendants from seeking recusal, challenging the fairness of proceedings, or making informed strategic decisions. The resulting appearance of partiality, amplified by ex parte discussions between the bench and the prosecution about threats directly implicating defendants, has created an incurable breach of judicial neutrality that no less a remedy than a full recusal of the Central District Bench can cure. The integrity of criminal prosecutions depend on transparency and impartiality. Here, both were fatally compromised because these violations strike at the core of due process and the constitutional guarantee of receiving fair hearings in front of an impartial decision maker. Dismissal is the only adequate remedy. Additionally, the line prosecutors, especially AUSA Yanello, must be barred from participating in the prosecution of this case, and because it appears the entire United States Attorney's Office for the Central District of California, USAO/CDCA, participated in the investigation, the entire office must be disqualified. Finally, given that the USAO sought a superseding indictment against the defendants just days after being directly threatened in their name, the indictment must be dismissed. The fact that USAO concealed the information and only revealed it to support its extraordinary motion to impanel an unanimous jury demands that the indictment be dismissed with prejudice. No lesser sanctions can restore public confidence in the fairness of this prosecution or cure the prejudice flowing from months of secret communications and judicial proceedings conducted under these extraordinary circumstances.
To be honest, they should dismiss this. Not because, it's Team Durk or no shit like that. Y'all sent it to every damn judge. Niggas that wasn't even involved. The feds is dumb on this one. This gotta be one of the dumbest damn things I've ever read in my life. Y'all literally poisoned every damn judge. So imagine if you said, yo, Nash, I'ma beat you up. And I go, I'm scared, shit. But I lie, and I say to all my family members, yeah, he said he gonna whoop all of us. And so now when you walk around some of my family members, something that was just a conversation between me and you, everybody in my family tripping on you because I told them you said you gonna whoop everybody. Like, bro, I never said that shit. And that's wrong. The feds are, and this is the dirty game the feds play. This is like when y'all be like, oh yeah, and y'all push this bullshit that, oh, the feds have a 90 whatever the hell conviction rate. That's propaganda. Y'all know we like to say propaganda over here. That's propaganda, bro, because at the end of the day, we really don't know. The feds play dirty, and I told y'all, they will hit y'all with like 47 damn charges. And then next thing you know, they drop it down. They get rid of a gang of charges. And next thing you know, you go, God, please send a miracle, please send a miracle, please send a miracle, please send a miracle against free will. Please do this against free will. And the feds come back and they say, you know what, instead of those 47, we're gonna drop it down to 17. And you go, hot diggity damn, y'all got me on something. And then the fact that they kept on pushing this, and we kept on, and everybody kept on sitting like, hey bro, you do know that if these cats are making threats like this against judges and lawyers and all this shit, bro, we do know, right? We must know who it is, so y'all get on and investigating. It wouldn't surprise me if the feds were the ones making this goddamn call.
It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying that they are, because that'll be lying, and I know they'll be knocking on my door. But it wouldn't surprise me if the feds are the ones who made up the damn calls, or if the calls even exist at all anyways. Hell if I know. But if somebody actually did make these calls, your ass going to jail forever. Let's go. This just gets crazier by the damn read. Factual background. By at least February 25th, 2025, the prosecution team, including the lead FBI case agent, Sarah Cochran, and the USAO, knew that Judge Donahue had received violent threats connected to this case. By April 28, 2025, they also knew that AUSA Yanello and courthouse USAO personnel have been similarly threatened, yet the government did not disclose any of this to the defense until October 1st, 2025, as more fully detailed in the paragraphs below. The most relevant dates to this joint motions are as follows. February 22nd, 2025, 4 threatened voicemails to Judge Donahue referencing Mr. Banks and threatening Judge Donahue and courthouse personnel. February 25th, 2025, USMS contacts Chambers and USAO FBI opens investigations. S.A. Cochran becomes FBI point of contact and actively investigates threats. April 28, 2025, threatening call to AUSA Yanello with death threats to AUSA Yanello and courthouse USAO panel. May 1st, 2025, the United States Attorney's Office obtained a second superseding indictment, in this case docket number 147. May 8, 2025, detention hearing before Judge Donahue. Threats still undisclosed to defense. June 2nd, 2025, detention hearing and pretrial motion hearing on defendant's motion to disclose grand jury transcripts before Judge Fitzgerald. Threats still undisclosed to defense. Continued detention ordered. Ruling pending on motion to disclose August 6th and 13th, 2025. Conferences between prosecution team and undersigned defense counsel, RE, anonymous jury, threats still undisclosed. October 1st, 2025. First pretrial disclosure of threats by government. The defense makes oral demands for immediate disclosure of all relevant materials and communications about threats. October 9th and 14th, 2025, defense written discovery demand letters. October 23rd, 2025, government's letter and selective disclosures about threats directed against Magistrate Judge Donahue and courthouse personnel. On February 22nd, February 22nd, 2025, a mail caller left 4 violent voicemails for Magistrate Judge Patricia Donahue on her work line. Exhibit 1, declaration of Jonathan M. Brayman. The messages referenced Mr. Banks and Mr. Wilson by name, contained explicit death threats and invoked acts of mass destruction, accompanied by sounds mimicking gunfire. You got to be kidding me. I'm the judge. I'm strapped up. I come get some. But shout out to that judge. Special Agent Cochran, FBI, FD 1057, detailing death threats received by Judge Donahue, left on her work voicemail on February 22nd, 2025. Transcribed February 22nd, 2025, death threat voicemails under seal. For example, one word warning: if they get life, I'm going to burn this shit down. I'm talking about the world. And I'm going to burn it down. I'm going to burn it to the ground. Nigga, I would have rolled my eyes to the back of my dome. On the voicemails, the caller urges Judge Donahue repeatedly to do the right thing and to free Mr. Banks and Mr. Wilson. The government's immediate awareness and proactive investigation into the February 22nd, 2025 death threats received by Judge Donahue. By February 25th, 2025, the United States Marshal Service, USMS, had contacted Judge Donahue's chambers and the USAO regarding the threats. Reports and emails between prosecution team, USMS, and the judiciary. The FBI opened a criminal investigation and assigned Special Agent Sarah Cochran, the lead case agent on the bank's prosecution, as a primary point of contact. Cochran drafted the FBI FD 1057 report describing the voicemails and was listed as the contact person for the investigation. Agent Cochran and the USAO coordinated investigative steps, including full workups on the suspected caller, cross-check of jail and call records, and communication with other field offices. She also arranged for the FBI to interview the suspected caller and reported the results to the AUSA's and USMS. Reports and emails between prosecution team, USMS, and the judiciary filed under seal. Thus, by late 2025, both prosecution team and the bench were aware that the magistrate judge presiding over the case was named victim of violent case-specific threats. Additional threats against AUSA Yanello and courthouse USAO personnel on April 28, 2025, a separate caller telephoned AUSA Ian Yanello at the AUSAO issuing explicit death threats against him, as well as everyone who worked at the courthouse and the USAO. Special Agent Jordan Guidance FBI FD 1057 detailing death threats received by AUSA Yanello at the USAO via telephone. Agent Guidance FBI report is dated approximately 2 full weeks after the threatening phone call that AUSA Yanello received because it was not produced in a discovery produced by the government on this issue. It is unknown to the defense what reason explains this delay, nor does the defense have any information about what happened immediately after AUSA Yanello received the phone call. Many questions remain unanswered from the government's discovery production. For example, did AUSA Yanello first call his supervisor? Did he call Agent Cochran? Who took the initial report? Did agents listen to the recorded call? Has it been preserved? Did AUSA Yanello have communication with the court right away? Who did he talk to? What did he say, if anything, about the phone call's relationship to the defendants? The discovery produced shows that the prosecution team and the lead case agent, FBI Special Agent Chet Cochran, played an active role in the investigation into the death threats received by AUSA Yanello. Reports and emails between prosecution team, USMS, and the judiciary. And perhaps most critically, an evidentiary hearing could answer how it is that the grand jury returned a second superseding indictment charging an entirely new charge, stalking resulting in death violation 3 days after the lead prosecutor's life was threatened by people purportedly seeking to free the lead defendant. Did the threatened telephone call to AUSA Yanello have any impact on the government seeking additional charges? Did the threatening phone calls to Judge Donahue have any impact on the government's efforts to further indict? What, if any, of this was shared in ex parte communications between the court and the government? The discovery leaves these questions unanswered, and because the defense and public were kept in the dark about the threats investigations and any potential impact it may have had on the bench's impartiality, the court should order further inquiry. The FBI later determined that the caller was a different individual than the one who called Judge Donahue and made death threats, and that a full investigation was open pursuant to Section 7.5 of the FBI's Domestic Investigations and Operations Guide, cited potential violations of 18 U.S.C. 875C. This was to be the second full criminal investigation opened by the FBI regarding threats the bench and government received related to the instant prosecution. Both call incidents were referred for criminal investigation. The FBI investigation into the death threats received by Judge Donahue had an FBI case ID number of 89B LA 404-5113, and the FBI investigation into the death threats received by AUSA Yanello had an FBI case ID number of 9E LA 407-4487. Moreover, the prosecution team, through case agent Cochran, initiated investigations into both sets of threats by FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force and the FBI's Guardian Squad. Special Agents FBI Guardian Complaint Form 71 from Judge Donahue threats investigation. Special Agent Cochran's FBI, this is just going too much. Continue litigation before threatened judges without disclosure. How is it that y'all getting all of these threats? Y'all tell us nothing. So now we sitting up here in the blind. And on top of that, bruh, is this even real? Is this even true? Is this the reason why y'all start going so hard and basically trying to do all of these things? And it's funny because they're trying to paint Lil Durk as this mastermind with connections of people who will hurt you because you're technically going against him. This is all a part of the messaging they're trying to push. And this is why it's so important that they do this stuff. They know they don't have a case. They know they don't have a real case against Lil Durk. Everybody else, shit, they might be gone. But I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna make this emphatically clear. If there is some idiots out there really doing this, bro, the feds are gonna fry you worse than goddamn eggs. If you are one of them, you gotta be one of the dumbest individuals to threaten a judge, then threaten a goddamn lead attorney. With all due respect to everybody, I hope they catch you. I hope the feds catch you and stretch your ass out like Laffy Taffy, because you gotta be one of the dumbest idiots. Lil Durk team should be thanking you, honestly. And why should Lil Durk's team be thanking you? Because who the hell would be so damn stupid? This is, bro, whoever did this shit, you going to hell on earth. The feds gonna fry you if they didn't already catch it. I ain't read this whole indictment. You guys are reading it with me. I just found this out like late, but yeah, for the feds to sit up here and have all this information and this extra fire and basically keep on pressing and keep on pushing shit like lyrics that did not even occur. So, yeah, bro, I ain't gonna hold you. So far,
so good for Banks and his whole entire team. Let's continue on to the bad movie.
Continue litigation before threatened judges without disclosure. Despite this knowledge, the government did not disclose the threats to the defense while the case proceeded before the very judges implicated. Judge Donahue presided over Mr. Banks' May 8, 2025 detention hearing. Months after receiving the threats, at the hearing, Judge Donahue heard evidence from Mr. Banks, considered the arguments and counter evidence presented by the government, and ultimately denied Mr. Banks' pretrial release from custody on the grounds that he was both a risk of flight and, more salient, for purposes of this motion, a danger to the community. No shit, you got threatened, so it would only make sense that he'll be a threat to the community, right? To state the obvious, Judge Donahue was in no position to consider whether Mr. Banks was too dangerous to be released while having been both personally threatened by someone purporting to act on Mr. Banks' behalf and having had her entire workplace physically and violently threatened by the same. And not once did she reveal this potential for partiality and conflict to the defense or put the matter on the record for the good of the public's faith in the impartiality of the proceedings in any way, and the discovery fails to elucidate why this is so, further necessitating an evidentiary hearing as to ex parte communications between and among the bench and the prosecution team, leading to this unusual outcome. As the court is aware, Judge Donahue denied Mr. Banks' bail request on May 8, 2025. Mr. Banks then appealed Judge Donahue's detention order to Judge Fitzgerald. The government filed in opposition to Mr. Banks' appeal of the detention order docket 167 on June 2, 2025. Mr. Banks and Mr. Wilson appeared before Judge Fitzgerald at a hearing on the appeal of the magistrate judge's detention order on their motion to produce grand jury transcripts. Neither before, during, or after that hearing did Judge Fitzgerald disclose that he was aware of the threats, investigations against his colleagues, his courthouse, or counsel for the government. And because he did not make that disclosure, Judge Fitzgerald did not assure Mr. Banks or the public that those pending investigations and ex parte communications had any bearing on his view of Mr. Banks. Standing in the case, his request for release and any future proceedings before him. Rather, on June 9, 2025, Judge Fitzgerald simply denied Mr. Banks' appeal, a magistrate judge detention order docket 202 at 4. Magistrate judge correctly determined that clear and conceiving evidence supports the finding of danger. And as magistrate judge concluded, defendant uses his money, influence, and power to endanger individuals whom he perceives as a threat. That's a hell of a way to say that. Throughout the spring and summer of 2025, the parties engaged in extensive pretrial litigation and trial preparation, including discovery, disputes, and conferences about the government's intention to seek an unanimous jury. During the August 6th and 13th meet and confers, the government invoked generalized safety concerns, but again failed to reveal the death threats and the existence of criminal investigations into the threats against the presiding judiciary and the prosecution team. Remarkably, during the August 13th meeting confer, in response to defense counsel's inquiry whether the government's request to impanel an anonymous jury was the result of a particularized concern for safety. In this case, AUSA Yanello, who himself had been the target of violent threat purportedly made in relation or on behalf of Mr. Banks, responded that he was confused by defense counsel's question given the obvious safety risk. What? What the hell you mean obvious if we didn't know? Associated with the violent nature of the charges in the pending prosecution, never in the August 13th phone call did AUSA Yanello or his colleagues disclose the existence of threats or the pending criminal investigations into threats. This is especially egregious when just weeks earlier, the AUSA's on the case requested that the defense enter into a stipulation waiving any efforts to recuse Judge Fitzgerald given his brother's employment at the U.S. Attorney's Office during the pendency of this case, that the government would seek to exact a recusal waiver on a de minimis issue of judicial neutrality while concealing the existence of the threat investigation and the possible effect on the bench is deeply troubling. Because how in the hell can you say, hey, you know it's obvious safety concerns here, and we're like, nigga, what the hell are you talking about? That's insane right there. The government's selective, limited, and untimely disclosures followed by defense demands. I'm sorry y'all about the AC, but I'm on vacation in Puerto Rico, bruh, and it's hot as hell out here, so I gotta keep that AC on. Sorry y'all for the noise. But only on October 1st, 2025, just days before the deadline for filing pretrial motions, did the prosecution partially disclose that Judge Donahue and AUSA Yanello had been victims of threats regarding this case. Defense counsel for Banks, Wilson, Lindsay, and Houston immediately demanded complete disclosure of all related communications, investigative reports, and correspondence between the USAO, FBI, USMS, and the bench. On October 9th and 14th, the defense memorialized those demands in writing. See Group Exhibit 1, Declaration of Jonathan M. Brayman. The USAO responded on October 23rd with its own letter. The government's October 23rd letter completely ignores or minimizes several important events, including, we're not going to go through all this stuff. They just saying the exact same shit that they wrote. The argument and legal standards, governing disqualification and recusal.
You know what's crazy? They were just acting like, you know, he's a bad guy. And they like, well, if he's such a bad guy, why'd y'all create a second superseding indictment instead of the first one? The first one saying that, oh, there was money involved and all this other crap, but then turn around and then you say this shit randomly. In my mind, if I'm a lawyer, I'm thinking, why are you saying this? And they kept that in the back of their head until this came out. So for the for the feds to be like, yeah, he's a bad guy. And them cats looking around like, nigga, you ain't got no slam dunk case, bruh. I don't know, bro. The feds have always been dirty, always been slimy. Our country, because of its greatness, we poison other countries. Like, we go after other countries. You think we won't use these same tactics in the same courtrooms that's used to lie on justice every single day, Monday through Friday? Come on now. Now, let's not pretend that, you know, there ain't some evil, sick bastards out there. That's very true. And I'm going to be fair, square, obvious, and honest. We do need what we have, but also you need attorneys like Drew Finland. So enter this code right here, Steady Nash, #1, and get $20. I'm just messing with y'all. He's about to put in a promotional code to use Drew Finland and get 20% off. Nah. But yeah, bro, the feds are looking pretty damn dumb because how do we know that Drew and them would have a freaking bounty on their head either? Like, yo, and tell Drew if he loses his cases, we gonna offer his head too. So it's just shit like this where it's like, you can't be a person who been threatened and then make decisions as well. Get out the way. And then just those decisions, bro. It's just those decisions. Like, the damn judge snitched on herself. The judge snitched. Said, oh, yeah, with obvious threats to witnesses and everybody else. Obviously, to who? Oh, to you, because it happened to you. And that's why they use the damn word influence. And that's why they are actively trying to, and I kept telling y'all, bro, to the D-Thing murder shit, bro, like, why are they constantly trying to bring this in? When Illinois said Durk had nothing to do with this shit. Why are they constantly doing this shit? I kept asking this question to everybody. Nobody acknowledged this. Let me know in the comments right now if you get what I mean when I say, bro, why the hell were they bringing in this case when Lil Durk had nothing to do with it? Oh, because his presence, his name will invoke you to do evil. It's like yelling out Shaitan. Hey, if you yell out Shaitan, it might become a part of you. Who knows? Crazy shit. Let's continue on.
And this will be the last thing that we read. I know it's been a long video. Y'all probably on the edge of y'all seats. Like, thank guys you turned off the damn AC. I know it's loud as hell, so my bad for that. Anyways, argument. Legal standards governing disqualification and recusal. Standard for judicial recusal. The principles at stake here are fundamental. The Fifth Amendment guarantees defendants a fair and impartial tribunal. The Sixth Amendment guarantees a fair trial. These rights are codified in 28 U.S.C. 144 and 455, which collectively require recusal whenever a judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned, or she has personal bias or prejudice or personal knowledge and dispute evidentiary facts. As the Supreme Court has cogently put it, the purpose of these statutes is to avoid even the appearance of partiality. If it would appear to a reasonable person that a judge's knowledge of facts that would give him or her an interest in the litigation, then an appearance of partiality is created even though no actual partiality exists, because the judge does not recall the facts, because the judge actually has no interest in the case, or because the judge is pure in heart and incorruptible. Yeah, bullshit. The demand recusal, even when no actual bias is shown. The appearance of partiality is enough. And that is true. That's very damn true. Section 144 provides a procedural mechanism for disqualification based on actual bias. It requires a timely and legally sufficient affidavit showing that judge has a personal bias or prejudice against the party, even where an affidavit under 144 is found procedurally deficient. The same facts must still be considered under 455, which imposes an independent self-executing obligation on judges to recuse whenever their impartiality might reasonably be questioned. Beyond the bench, the same constitutional principles apply to the prosecution. Due process forbids the government from maintaining conflicts of interest or engaging in conduct that undermines the neutrality of the proceedings. Young versus U.S. The Ninth Circuit has made clear that disqualification of an entire United States Attorney's Office is an extraordinary remedy, appropriate only when the most exceptional circumstances. United States versus Williams. Under Williams, such a remedy requires a strong factual predicate demonstrating that the conflict or misconduct is institutional rather than individual. And that's very damn true because y'all spread this shit to all the judges. And two, a showing that the office's continued participation will result in an actual legal or ethical violation or otherwise compromise the fairness or appearance of fairness in the proceedings. Court cautioned that because the separation of powers concern inherent in judicial oversight of the effective branch, office-wide disqualification should be ordered only when lesser remedies, such as recusal of individual prosecutors or internal screening, will be inadequate to eliminate the conflict. At bottom, the inquiry under 455A and due process clause asks whether a reasonable or prudent person, knowing these objective facts, would harbor doubts whether the court is impartial. The threats and ex parte communications require recusal of the Central District of California bench. The appearance of partiality is sufficient. And they really have that, bro, because once again, the damn DA decided we're going to give this shit to all the judges to let y'all know y'all homeboy got threatened. You think if you threaten my homie that nigga, I'm not going to whoop your ass too? Come on, bro. Reasonable thoughts. Magistrate Judge Donahue was named victim of 4 recorded death threats that referenced Mr. Banks and Mr. Wilson by name. She presided over detention hearings, heard argument from counsel, and issued rulings in the weeks and months following those threats. Judge Fitzgerald later reviewed and relied on those rulings. Neither made any disclosure to defendants about the threats, even assuming the judge's actual impartiality. The appearance of impartiality has been lost, and that's very true. As the Supreme Court recognized in Lilleberg, recusal is required where an objective observer would have reasonable grounds to question the judge's impartiality. Moreover, the pattern of non-disclosure and ex parte communication over a period of 7 months undermines both the appearance and the reality of fairness. Courts have long recognized that when threats to a judge are credible and not contrived by the defendant, recusal is required to preserve confidence and impartiality. Those cases, and Holland itself, distinguish between self-serving threats intended to manipulate the system and genuine external threats that create an appearance of bias beyond repair. Where the latter exists, as here, recusal is mandatory. Here, any reasonable observer would doubt the fairness of proceedings in which a magistrate judge, while being investigated as a victim of threats referencing a defendant by the prosecution team, continued to make critical pretrial rulings, and where the district judge later adopted those rulings without disclosure to the defense. The Ninth Circuit's decision in United States versus Holland does not excuse the failure to recuse her. If anything, it underscores why recusal is compelled. In Holland, the defendant himself had personally obtained the sentencing judge's home's telephone number and left a threatening voicemail before sentencing. The district court revealed the call on the record and characterized it as an obvious attempt to manipulate the system. On appeal, reviewing only the plain error because no recusal motion had been filed, the Ninth Circuit affirmed, emphasizing that threats do not automatically require recusal where they are transparently manipulative, unserious, or intended to game the system. The court explained that recusal under 28 U.S.C. 455 depends on both an objective appearance test and a subjective bias test. The judge must recuse when a well-informed, thoughtful observer would perceive a significant risk that the case will be decided on a bias other than the merits, or when the judge personally concludes he cannot be impartial. The Ninth Circuit warned that judges must guard against letting defendants weaponize threats to obtain a new jurist, but also acknowledge that there where credible threats exist, or where the appearance of partiality becomes unavoidable, recusal is required. The circumstances here bear no resemblance to Holland. First, the threats in this case were not made by any defendant, by the outside individuals invoking Mr. Banks' name and threatening the lives of the magistrate judge, the lead prosecutor, and everyone who worked at the courthouse, and the USAO CDCA. There is no suggestion of manipulation by the defense and no conceivable initiative to create such threats for tactical advantage. Second, unlike in Holland, where the judge deemed the threat trivial, made no referral to law enforcement, and proceeded after open disclosure, The threats were taken with utmost seriousness by the government itself. Within days, U.S. Marshal Service and FBI launched a full investigation under Section 7.5 of the FBI's Domestic Investigations and Operations Guide, the same FBI case agent leading this prosecution. You gotta be shitting me. Special Agent Sarah Cochran was designated as the point of contact for the threats investigation, prepared FD/1057 reports describing the threats and coordinated with multiple agencies. The USAO CDCA was directly involved throughout. That multi-agency response demonstrates the government's own recognition that these were not empty or manipulative gestures. They were credible threats that triggered sustained federal law enforcement involvement. The third and most critical distinction in disclosure in Holland, the district court disclosed the threats before sentencing, allowing the record to be clear in adversarial. Here, the government and judiciary concealed the existence of the threats for more than 7 months. Such communications violate both 455B1, personal knowledge of disputed evidentiary facts, and the Code of Conduct for United States Judges, Canon 384. The Ninth Circuit has long condemned undisclosed ex parte contacts between the government and bench on matters bearing on the merits of a criminal case. But here, for months, the magistrate judge who had been named the victim of threats presided over Mr. Banks' detention hearings and issued rulings that the district court later adopted. Meanwhile, the prosecution team, aware and participating in investigations, conferred privately with chambers and court security about the same threats, but never disclosed them to the defense. Only on October 1st, 2025, did the government finally reveal that both the judge and lead prosecutor had been targeted. That prolonged non-disclosure and the pattern of ex parte communications it reflects create precisely the appearance of impropriety that 455A was enacted to prevent. This distinction between trivial, self-serving threats and genuine, externally generated ones is precisely what other circuits have found determinative in United States versus Youssef. The Second Circuit explained that recusal was required where a reasonable observer could question whether a judge who has been the target of a genuine threat could remain entirely impartial, particularly when the threat arises from sources beyond the mere defendant manipulation. Similarly, the 10th Circuit had consistently held that genuine threats compel disqualification to preserve both the reality and appearance of justice. In Nichols versus Alley, United States versus Greenspan, recognized that when threats are not contrived by the defendant, but instead appear credible to provoke a legitimate security response, recusal is necessary to avoid an appearance of partiality that reasonable members of the public could not ignore. These cases, read together, make clear that the duty to recuse turns not on the judge's subject sense of safety, but on whether a reasonable observer would doubt the judge's impartiality under circumstances. Under Holland's own framework, recusal is mandatory, and every objective factor supports recusal. A reasonable observer, knowing that the presiding magistrate judge was the victim of a credible threat under active FBI investigation, that the prosecutors were simultaneously litigating before her while communicating privately about the threats, and that the defense was kept entirely in the dark, would unreasonably harbor serious doubt that justice could be seen to be done, even assuming the judges themselves sincerely believe they can remain impartial. The appearance of impartiality is gone. As Holland itself recognized, credible threats create two unacceptable risks: that a judge will unconsciously temper rulings to diffuse danger, or conversely, that the judge will overcorrect by favoring the government as a means of asserting control or deterrence. Both possibilities erode confidence in the fairness of the proceedings. Unlike in Holland, where a single defendant manipulated call was dismissed as unserious, this case involves third-party threats so grave that the federal government launched a full criminal investigations. Those circumstances, compounded by 7 months of secrecy and ex parte communication, go far beyond what Holland tolerated. They strike at the structural integrity of judicial process, and compel recusal of the affected judges and reassignment of the case outside the Central District of California under Youssef, Nicholas, Greenspan, Cooley. Recusal is not optional. It is necessary to preserve both due process, the integrity of the proceedings. The government's failure to disclose threats and resulting criminal investigations require disqualification of the USAO CDCA. From February through October, the United States Attorney Office for the Central District of California knew that both the presiding magistrate and the lead prosecutors were the victims of violent threats made in apparent support of Mr. Banks and Mr. Wilson. Despite the knowledge, the office continued litigating this case before those same judges relied on their detention rulings, conducting discovery conferences, and engaging in ex parte communications regarding courthouse security without ever disclosing the threats to the defense. The result is an irreconcilable conflict of interest. The lead prosecutor, A.S.A. Unello, became both victim and a participant in a criminal investigation closely tied to this case, while his office continued to prosecute it. By proceeding without recusal or disclosure of the inherent potential conflicts, the USAO effectively blurred the line between advocate and witness, compromising both the independence of the prosecuting authority and the integrity of the judicial process. This was not a run-of-the-mill discovery dispute. The information that the government intentionally and actively withheld from the defense dealt with the very integrity, neutrality, and fairness of the proceedings, the death threats. Let's just go ahead and go down and see what the hell they finna say. Because they just basically gonna say, dismiss this whole entire shit. Because now they're just like, it's word salad at this point. They keep on saying this. The extraordinary circumstances here meet and exceeded the Williams standard for office-wide disqualification and conflict. It's not confined to one AUSA, but pervades the entire USAO CDCA, which functions simultaneously as victims, witness, investigator, and prosecutor. Under these conditions, no lesser remedy, whether screening individual prosecutors, substituting personnel, to restore public confidence, or ensure fairness. The Department of Justice can assign this prosecution to another district. Only full disqualification of all of California, basically, can remedy the appearance of improperty and assure the defendants and the public that this prosecution will proceed free from bias, conflict, and the lingering shadow of concealment. So yeah, we're not gonna keep on reading this shit because they're just basically going on to say the same damn thing. But let's get back into it.
You know what's crazy is in July, years ago, we had like gone viral for the first time, something that we said about Banks, well, about Lil Durk and somebody breaking in his house and all this shit, and how was somebody in OTF that later got revealed. This one right here is going to work. They're going to toss it to another district. They can't do it in this one. They can't. It's impossible. You can't sit up here and say, yeah, we all got threatened, all of us. Spread it to all the judges in Central District of California, and then say, you know, I'm gonna be honest, we can still do our jobs after we got threatened. No, because a reasonable person, meaning you, yes, you watching, you individually or a group. Some of y'all be watching with y'all girls. Some of y'all girls be tapping. Stop doing that too, because some of y'all men be in my inbox like, bruh, hey, knock you out, you hop my girl inbox. But anyways, a reasonable person would say, there's no way in hell no judge can be unbiased from this. So when they say reasonable, they're saying you, regular individual like myself. There's no way in hell. You can't threaten me and then think I won't hold it against you. And then say little hints like, yo, it's obvious that this person is dangerous. Oh, obvious security risk. What obvious security risk, bitch? What you talking about? The feds are dirty. And I ain't gonna hold you. It's gonna get, there's no way in hell. There's zero, a big old zero. There's zero way in hell this don't get kicked off to somewhere else. Because they're not gonna dismiss the whole entire case. They're not. They're just not. So where it goes, hell if I know. It probably goes up to Oregon. If it go to Arizona, bruh, I ain't gonna hold you. Shit, y'all might want to get it back to California because California is liberal as hell. Like, they will hear these lyrics. Like, the white people we have in California is better than anywhere else. I'm sorry. We got the best blacks, we got the best Asians, we got the best damn Hispanics, and we 100% got the best white people in California. Hands down. Why? Because they grew up on gangster rap. They grew up on Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre and Eazy-E. They grew up on Ice-T. They grew up on Ice Cube. They grew up on NWA. They know what F the police means. They know that it's not a violent goddamn song. They witnessed the Rodney King riots and all of this shit. And we're talking about the older ones. So, shit, we'll see what happens, bro. But right now, as it stands, this case is done in California. Sure to keep your people aware, subscribe, turn on bells to notify. Click right here to see how Jim Jones' ass is up there sounding like Lil Meech in the goddamn airport, bro. Pathetic. Click right here, or click right here for the playlist. I'm on vacation, so the video is probably gonna slow up, man. I'm sorry I had to get out the house, but hopefully I can still maintain. I'll catch you on the next one.
You are now watching Compton Rick Rock TV. Let's get to the content.
You might forget some of the homeboys that you was locked up with. You might even forget some of the female staff that used to come to work. And I know a whole lot of female staff that used to come to work, and they used to give me that eye like they want to give me a try, man. Yeah, but it's a few things, man, that you won't forget. And some of those things will be a passing. For instance, I was in juvenile hall, man, and the staff came to my door, gave me a phone call. I'm thinking like, oh yeah, man, it's cool, man, because you had to use that pay phone, and then the dudes who used to clean up, they was like porters, they used to get to use the free phone. You know, we juvenile hall, we kids. So I'm thinking like, yeah, man, I got a call, man. I feel to go call one of my little young hood rats. But man, it was a call. They told me specifically to call my mother. When I called my mother, man, she gave me the news that my grandma passed away. And that was the first time I felt, you know what I'm saying, a heartbreak, man. You'll never, ever forget that. And those things right there make you think as time go by, like, man, if I would have just been doing what I was supposed to do, not living that life, man, I would have been free when this stuff happened. Another phone call, man, I was locked up in Ironwood State Prison. And I just had a squabble that day. And I went back to my cell, man, and I got another phone call. I had to report to the program office. I'm thinking it's because the squabble that I had earlier that day in the kitchen. But it was Captain Howell, man. He was the captain at the prison. And he was a cool dude, Rastafarian dude, smoked that bud, all that, man. And he gave me that phone call, and I got that call that my brother passed away, man. And man, them calls like that, man. Like I tell you, it's no pain that you could feel when you're incarcerated. Another time, my auntie passed away. I got that call like a month to being released, man. I lost a cousin. I lost a lot of family members being incarcerated, but I never got a chance to go to the funerals. I've never got a chance to go to a funeral. For some reason, I didn't get that type of action, man. So yeah, man, we're gonna get to Eddie Boy page, man. Eddie Boy got a clipping up, man, that say Big U have been given permission to attend Baby U's funeral, which is his son. That's a good thing, man. Now, I don't know what that man is filling up in there. I don't know what his family is filling up in there. I know a lot of people ran content on this, man. But we're going to get to Eddie Boy page and see what he got to say. He have a similar story as well, man. But before we do that, y'all already know the routine, man. Y'all like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get to the content. All right, man. Let's get to Eddie Boy page and see what's going on, man. Let's go.
Assalamu alaikum, people. Well, who say things can't happen? Who say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can't make things happen? And I think the brother Big U should be grateful that they're letting him go to his son's funeral.
Exactly. Definitely got to be grateful, man. You got to be grateful because a lot of people didn't get to make them funerals. I know I didn't. I don't know why, but I couldn't make it. They wouldn't let me go. You know, I don't know if my folks wanted me to see that, and they told me anything just to keep me from asking them. Maybe, you know, they didn't want me to see that, you know, go back and, you know, mess mine off. I was younger, but you're a little older, so you probably could deal with this a little different than I probably would have. You know, I probably would have came back and called a license, man, just because you're emotional. You're going to be in your emotions. Somebody say the wrong thing, trigger you, you liable to, you know, run some still up in him, man. Let's get back to this.
And, you know, it's always alhamdulillah for that. And the reason I say that is because is that when you lose somebody behind them walls, especially a child, a brother or something like that, you guys don't know how that shit feel, man. That hit different.
Cold.
And I'm gonna tell you why it hit different. My little brother, may Allah be pleased with that brother. May Allah grant that man the Jannah. I caught my case in 1991, in December 26, 1991, and my little brother was living with me. My baby brother was living with me. He was living nowhere near the section or anything like that. But when I got caught up, he had to move back over there with moms over there on 10th Avenue. So my little brother was at work at Quick and Split over there on Crenshaw and Slauson, right there where Nip got killed at. My brother got killed right there in that same parking lot. It seemed like the same exact spot. And that shit ate at me so much because I figured that if I would have never left, he would have never been over there.
All right. Now, y'all heard what he just said. He said, if I would have never left, my folks wouldn't have been over there. This happened to a lot of us when we go to these jailhouses and we leave our loved ones behind, especially our little brothers and, you know, your kids and stuff like that. You leave them out here for everybody to get a hold, for the world to get a hold to them. You know, maybe your influence or your presence being around them could save them. You know, your guidance could save them. Hey, man, don't go over there, man. You know, it's cracking over there. He might didn't have that intel that he had like his brother had. You know what I'm saying? When it's hot in the hood, hey, don't go over there right now. It's kind of hot. Somebody just got laid down last night. You don't want to be in that section. You know, losing your brother when you locked up. Like I said, I lost my younger brother when I was incarcerated. And man, that was a cold, cold feeling. And, you know, it was told to me that, you know, I heard that little bro had got his size up and he was, you know, doing his thing. He, you know, what we young dudes do. And, man, he got into a wild shootout, man. And, yeah, man, he caught the bad end of the stick. But I got that phone call when I was incarcerated. You know, if I wouldn't have been incarcerated at that time, who know what my mind frame would have been like, what I would have done, you know? So everything happened for a reason, man. One thing for sure, two things for certain. We all got to leave here one day, man. Let's get back to this.
Because, you know, I was living in Westchester at that time. He was going to Westchester High School and stuff like that. So my point being is this. You guys don't know, can't even phantom how that stuff feels. You know, I can't even phantom that either, especially losing a child, but I can phantom losing a loved one, you know, and I wasn't privy to going to the funeral. But they finna let the brother Big U out. He has stipulations on his case. Yes, I do have the paperwork. You know me, I have the work. He cannot have no interaction with none of his co-defendants, have no interaction with no potential witnesses or anything like that, but he get to see his family.
That's the most important part. Get to see your family. I wouldn't want to talk to nobody. You know, I wouldn't want to talk to nobody unless it's my mom or, you know, close family like that. I'm going here, you know, to pay my respect to my kid. Everybody else, I really don't, you know, got no rap for, especially if y'all calling yourselves street members and y'all know the rest. I don't have to even go there, but, you know, I wouldn't want to speak to nobody but my immediate family, man. What do y'all think? Anybody in my comment section, have you been incarcerated and lost a family member? How did that affect you? How did you feel? Because I don't think being incarcerated and losing a family member on the streets, it's the pain is still pain. And I don't think it's any difference when you lose a loved one. When you lose a loved one, I think it's the same as if you was on the streets or if you was in jail. A death is a death. But being up in there, you know, you feel it some more because you haven't seen your folks in a while. You incarcerated, especially if they haven't seen you. So the people on the streets that's seeing that family member every day, you know, they gonna feel different than maybe how you would feel because you probably seen them 5 years ago when you got locked up. Them family members on the streets see this individual every single day. You see what I'm saying? So let's get back to this, though.
And basically, you know, a lot of other individuals he can see, and dudes who haven't seen him, you know, it's always a alhamdulillah for that the brother, man, get to go see his family, you know, the son sent off in a proper manner. And like I said, man, it's like I tell dudes all the time, man, the children doesn't have nothing to do with the sins of the parents. And I hope everybody understand that, you know, because some dudes be acting stupid, talking stupid and all that type of stuff. And dudes be like, man, why you defending Big U, man? I'm not defending that brother like that, brother. There's a fine line. There's a demarcation line you just don't cross when you're dealing with family, bro.
Exactly. And if you feel some type of way about somebody, like they say, man, why you taking up for him? If you feel like that man did, what type of man walks around here harboring feelings in his emotions, emotional? You see what I'm saying about another man and what he did? If you didn't do nothing to him, and if you go to jail right now, no, you ain't gonna do nothing to him, then why should that matter to you, man? You know, why should that matter to you? If you got a problem with somebody, if I have a problem with somebody, I'm gonna get on the phone. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get on the phone. Hey, what's up, homie? I noticed you've been moving kind of funny. Is it a problem with us, homie? Especially we supposed to be home, boy. Like, what's the issue? Because if it's a problem, we can go ahead and knock that out the way. We right now, we ain't got to do no plan, no waiting, all that old funny ass shit, acting like you don't see me and all this old weirdo shit. Nah, nigga, let's go ahead to the back and get this on up out the way real quick. Or if it's that serious, you know, just stay out my way, I'll stay out your way. But I'm not gonna run around here and tell other homies about a homie. I niggas bitch ass thing. I ain't finna do all that. If I got a problem with you, homie, I'm gonna give you that call. Hey, what's happening? Let's go handle that, man. It seems like, first of all, is it a problem? Yeah, it's a problem, nigga. Well, cuz, let's go ahead and get that out the way. Let's go ahead and get that out the way. We ain't gotta even do all this old fakeness, but let's get that out of the way. It's a cold game out here now, man.
You know, that man has a family. That man had kids, and ain't got nothing to do with everything he had going on, bro.
Right.
So, and dudes need to understand that on his highest level.
Right.
So, you know, they're letting him out. We're gonna see what goes on. We're gonna see what transpires. From Allah we come, from Allah we shall return. And on that note, brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum.
All right, man. That's Eddie Boy. Let me take y'all over here to Eddie Boy page, man. I'm pretty sure he's going to be keeping up with all this stuff. He's going to be going to the court dates when they go to trial. So you guys go over and check out his content. He definitely been keeping up on what's been going on in his section. So y'all go over there and check out Eddie Boy page, man. Leave y'all thoughts in the comment section. What do y'all think about this? Do y'all think that he's blessed to even be able to leave and go see his son? You know, with him having that type of ranking, you know what I'm saying, being highly respected on the streets, do you think they made the right decision? Man, let's let him out, because we don't want nothing to happen to nobody up in here. You don't know how them people think. Those people probably thinking that they thinking the worst of you. They not thinking, you know, saint up in there. They thinking the worst of you. So they hoping that you tear something up. That's what they hoping. They get that hazardous pay. They make more money when the inmates crash out. And the goon squad's got to come up in there, tear everything up. They lock the facility down for a month. They get paid hazardous pay, extra pay. They love it when something happen up in them joints. That's why they be setting a lot of that stuff up. Some of them COs will unlock your door, unlock his door, knowing they don't get along, knowing they enemies, let them clash, let a group of them clash, lock the building, especially around Christmas. I know it's a whole lot of prisons right now locked down for Thanksgiving. Or they about to lock them down. They gonna start something or something for to happen. They are banking on it so they get that extra holiday pay, that extra cash. Leave y'all thoughts in the comment section, man. It's Compton Rick Rock with Compton Rick Rock TV. I'll catch all of y'all on the next one. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Compton Rick Rock TV. Also, hit that notification bell and catch every video when I drop.
Another video. Really quick, I wanted to chime in and kind of have this conversation with you guys, because I feel like this is something that we really need to discuss. It's kind of crazy what's going on, but really quick, let me put in my disclaimer. This video is under the Fair Use Act, and the Fair Use Act is in the description box of the video, as well as the About Me section of the platform.
Alright, man. We out to the next one, man. Trap the Wolves. What you think? You think Durk's cooked? Or you think he's coming home? We ate?